The dark multiverse bleeds into prime Earth on nights when reality grows thin, when the membrane between what is and what could never be stretches to the breaking point. Gotham City, that eternal monument to humanity's capacity for darkness, has weathered invasions from Apocalypse, incursions from the Phantom Zone, and the Joker's thousandth atrocity. But on this particular November night, as rain turns the streets to black mirrors reflecting neon sin, something older than America's nightmares steps through a dimensional wound that shouldn't exist. The rift opens in Crime Alley because of course it does. Where else would a monster enter a city built on murdered innocents? The tear in reality appears as a gash of impossible geometry, non-Euclidean angles that make the eyes of nearby homeless veterans water and their minds scream. From within that wound pours darkness that moves with predatory intent, shadow given form and hunger, and then laughter. Deep, genuine amusement at existence itself. Alucard materializes in stages, as if reality must negotiate with his presence. First, the crimson coat, bright as fresh arterial spray. Then the wide-brimmed hat shadowing a face too pale, too perfect, too amused by the cosmic joke of being. Yellow-lensed glasses over eyes that have witnessed 5 centuries of slaughter catch the streetlight, and when he smiles, it's the expression of an apex predator that has just realized the hunting ground has changed, but the game remains deliciously the same. My, he purrs, voice like silk drawn across a throat. What fascinating darkness you have here. The dimensional breach seals behind him with a sound like a scream played backwards, and Alucard stands alone in Crime Alley, breathing in Gotham's corruption like a connoisseur sampling fine wine. This city reeks of death, not the clean death of his wars, but the slow rot of institutions failing, of hope murdered incrementally, of a populace so traumatized they've normalized their own horror. It's intoxicating. He takes 3 steps, boots clicking on wet pavement before the first mistake finds him. 3 gang members, Penguin's crew, based on the umbrella tattoos, emerge from the shadows with the swagger of men who own these streets. They see the red coat, the old-fashioned styling, the obvious wealth, and they see prey. "Nice coat, freak," the leader says, flicking open a switchblade. "Hand it over along with your wallet and maybe we don't." Alucard's laugh cuts him off. It's not cruel laughter, not mocking, it's the genuine delight of a child receiving an unexpected gift. "Oh, this is perfect. You don't know what I am. You can't sense it. You're just food that thinks it's a predator." The leader lunges. Alucard doesn't move. The blade punches through his chest, through his heart, or where a heart would be if that organ still mattered to his existence. The gang member stares in confusion as Alucard looks down at the knife protruding from his sternum with academic interest. "In my world," Alucard says conversationally, pulling the blade out himself and examining it, "vampires were the ultimate horror, creatures of the night that hunted humanity for sport. I was the worst of them, the no-life king, Dracula himself, enslaved and weaponized." He drops the knife, and the wound in his chest knits closed with a wet, organic sound that makes the gang members' faces go pale. I wonder what passes for monsters in this delightfully broken city. Shadow erupts from Alucard like a living thing. Not metaphorical shadow, not darkness implying threat, actual animate shadow with teeth and eyes and hunger. The hellhound manifests in an instant, all black fur and red eyes and jaws that could swallow a man's torso whole. One gang member screams. One tries to run. One simply faints. Alucard restrains his familiar with a thought, his smile widening. No, not these. They're barely appetizers, and I've learned table manners since my leash was fitted. He looks at the conscious men with something almost like pity. Run along, little prey. Tell your city that something new walks its streets. Something that makes your costumed lunatics look like children playing dress-up. They run. The hellhound dissolves, and Alucard stands alone again in Crime Alley, tilting his head as if listening to a frequency only he can perceive. The city's darkness calls to him, but it's different from London's gloom, different from the calculated evil of millennium. This darkness has structure, purpose. He can feel it watching back. There's a guardian here, he murmurs. Something that treats this cesspool as territory worth protecting. How deliciously absurd. He begins walking, coat billowing behind him despite the still air, exploring his new hunting ground. Gotham at 2 a.m. is a study in contrasts, glittering corporate towers overlooking streets where human trafficking happens in plain sight, where the GCPD's sirens sound like prayers to indifferent gods, where every shadow might contain either a mugger or a cape-wearing vigilante or both. Alucard passes a prostitute propositioning a client, and he tips his hat to her with old-world courtesy that makes her blink in confusion. He observes a drug deal going south, the dealer putting 3 bullets into an addict's chest, and he simply watches with the detachment of one who has seen death lose all meaning. He witnesses Gotham's human horror, and it's so mundane compared to his own existence that it barely registers. Then he senses her. The vampire is young, perhaps 20 years dead, a mere infant in immortal terms. She's hunting in the fashion district, having already claimed 2 victims tonight based on the blood scent clinging to her. Alucard feels her presence like a discordant note in a symphony, and his interest sharpens to razor focus. He finds her in an alley behind a closed boutique, fangs buried in a businessman's neck, feeding with the sloppy desperation of a creature still ruled by hunger rather than master of it. She doesn't sense Alucard until he speaks. "Poor technique," he observes clinically. "You're spilling more than you're drinking, and you've left your back completely exposed. In my world, you'd have been exterminated in your first week." The vampire whirls, the businessman forgotten and falling. She's blonde, pretty in that manufactured way that suggests she was turned at some club, probably by a vampire who wanted a trophy. Her eyes are wild, her control non-existent, and when she sees Alucard, something primal in her recognizes the hierarchy. What are you?" she hisses, attempting a threatening display. "Your betters," Alucard replies, and before she can move, his hand is around her throat. Not choking, vampires don't breathe, but asserting dominance with the casual ease of an ancient god correcting a presumptuous insect. "Tell me, little leech, what passes for vampire society in this reality? Do you have a king, a council, rules beyond feed and hide?" There's no king," she gasps. "We're scattered. Most of the old bloodlines were destroyed by the Batman, by Constantine, by—" "Batman," Alucard interrupts, tasting the name. "The guardian I sensed, a vampire hunter." "Worse," she whispers. "He's human, just a man, but he's made the city his, and anything supernatural that kills here, he always finds." Alucard's smile could cut diamonds. A human who hunts monsters in the dark, how wonderfully nostalgic. He releases her and she stumbles back. "Run along, little vampire. Tell your scattered kin that Alucard has arrived. Tell them the no-life king walks again, and he's very interested in meeting this Batman, who thinks mortality is no barrier to dominion over the night." She flees, supernatural speed carrying her away. Alucard lets her go, already bored with prey that offers no challenge. The businessman is dead, blood loss, shock, the mundane mortality of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Alucard looks at the corpse without pity or satisfaction, merely acknowledging another grain of sand in the hourglass of human fragility. Then he senses it, the watching presence that has tracked him since the gang encounter. On the rooftop 4 stories up, perfectly still, a figure in gray and black that might be a gargoyle if gargoyles could radiate focused threat. Alucard looks up, meeting eyes hidden behind white lenses, and his grin becomes something terrible. "There you are," he breathes. "The Batman, the human who makes monsters fear him. I've been hoping you'd introduce yourself." Batman doesn't respond verbally, but Alucard sees the minute tension in his frame, the way his hand hovers near his utility belt where weapons wait. The Dark Knight is running calculations, assessing threat level, analyzing the being that just let a vampire flee and stands over a corpse with neither guilt nor satisfaction. "I didn't kill him," Alucard calls up conversationally. "Your local vampire did. Sloppy work, she lacks training. But you already knew there was a vampire hunting tonight, didn't you? You were tracking her and you found me. What fascinating luck. Batman's voice when it comes is graveled thunder. What are you? Ah, the essential question. Alucard spreads his arms wide, theatrical and mocking. I'm a monster. I'm the original vampire, defeated and enslaved, weaponized and unleashed. I am 500 years of slaughter given form and purpose. I am Alucard, Dracula backwards, because my master had a sense of irony. He drops his arms. And you are the detective who dresses as a bat to frighten criminals. We're both creatures of the night, it seems, though I suspect our methods differ. You're coming with me, Batman states, not requests. I have questions, and facilities designed for creatures like you. Alucard's laugh echoes off brick and stone. Designed for creatures like me. Oh, Dark Knight, I very much doubt that. Your world's vampires are weak, scattered prey animals hiding from flashlights and holy water. I'm what they pretend to be. His eyes flare crimson behind the glasses. But I'm curious about you, so I'll accept your invitation. Show me these facilities. Let's see if your preparations for local monsters suffice for one forged in a different hell entirely. Batman's hand moves, and something flies through the air. A batarang aimed with perfect precision at Alucard's forehead. It's a test, obviously, a way to measure reaction time and defensive capability. Alucard doesn't dodge. The batarang embeds itself in his skull with a sound like an axe striking wood, right between his eyes. He stands completely still for one beat, too, letting Batman absorb the implications. Then he reaches up, pulls the batarang free, and examines it with professional interest. Impressive craftsmanship, he notes, blood running down his face from the wound that's already closing. Weighted for maximum penetration, designed to incapacitate without killing. Very conscientious. He tosses it back up to Batman, who catches it reflexively. But I've had my brain destroyed 673 times by my count. You'll need to be more creative. Batman is utterly still on that rooftop, but Alucard can smell it. Not fear. Never fear from this one, but the scent of someone recalibrating their entire threat assessment. Whatever the Dark Knight expected to encounter tonight, an unkillable vampire who treats head trauma as conversation, isn't it? Ground rules, Alucard continues, his tone becoming almost cordial. I came to this reality through no choice of my own. I have no intention of being your enemy. I find heroism against impossible odds quite admirable, actually. It reminds me of someone I once knew. His expression darkens momentarily. But neither will I be your prisoner. I'm not one of your rogues gallery to be contained in your asylum or your cave. I am something categorically different. Then what do you want? Batman's question is sharp, cutting through theatricality to essential motivation. Alucard considers this, looking up at the clouded sky at the bat signal that isn't currently shining but whose presence he can sense, a beacon in the darkness, a symbol that makes criminals look over their shoulders. It's not so different from the relationship he had with Integra, this city's relationship with its Dark Knight. Terror as a tool, darkness as a weapon. What do I want? He repeats softly. I want what I've always wanted, a worthy opponent, an enemy that requires everything I am to defeat. In my world, I found them in Nazis and zealots, and my own dark mirror in this world. He gestures at Gotham's sprawl. I sense power here, gods walking as men, monsters wearing capes, darkness so profound it manifests as a carnival of madmen. This is a universe built for someone like me. You won't find worthy opponents by killing civilians, Batman growls. I haven't killed anyone, Alucard corrects mildly. And I won't, not unless they're genuine monsters, and before you ask, I mean the kind that can't be redeemed, that exist only to cause suffering. I was a weapon aimed at such creatures for decades, old habits. He meets Batman's gaze. I'm offering you an alliance, detective. I can sense this city has supernatural problems your wonderful toys can't fully address. Use me as the weapon I am. Point me at what needs destroying. Give me purpose, and I'll give you my considerable talents. I don't use weapons I can't control, Batman replies. Then don't try to control me, Alucard counters. Work with me. I've served under a master before. a young woman with more spine than most men I've known, who never flinched from giving me orders because she understood that monsters recognize strength. Be strong enough, Dark Knight, and I'll respect the partnership. The standoff lasts another beat before Batman speaks again. The Batcave, 1 hour, southeast corner of Crime Alley near the old church. I'll meet you there. It's not quite acceptance, but it's not rejection. It's the opening move in a negotiation between darkness and darkness. Alucard tips his hat. I'll be there. Punctuality is one virtue I've maintained. He turns to leave, then pauses. Oh, and Batman, that vampire I let flee. She's heading for the docks where I sense 2 more of her kind. If you want to clean up your city's scattered bloodsucker problem, tonight would be an excellent opportunity. I'd offer to help, but I think you need to see what you're dealing with in terms that make sense to you. He doesn't wait for a response, simply dissolving into shadow and mist, flowing between buildings like smoke given predatory intent. Batman watches the darkness swallow the vampire, his mind already racing through contingency plans, threat assessments, and the uncomfortable realization that Gotham's supernatural problems just escalated into a different category entirely. In the Batcave, an hour later, Alfred Pennyworth raises an eyebrow as Bruce Wayne describes the encounter. A vampire that regenerates from head trauma, claims to be Dracula's successor, and wants to be your partner, the butler summarizes dryly. Sir, I feel your ability to attract unusual associates has reached a new apex. He's not an associate, Bruce corrects, pulling up files on historical vampires, cross-referencing every database he has access to. Not yet, but if he's telling the truth about his capabilities. He trails off, studying security footage from Crime Alley that shows Alucard's arrival, the gang encounter, and the casual demonstration of power that treated injury as an inconvenience. Then you've encountered something that fundamentally challenges your protocols, Alfred finishes. A being that cannot be intimidated, cannot be contained, and apparently cannot be killed. What will you do, Master Bruce? Bruce stares at the footage, at the creature in red smiling at death like it's an old friend. What I always do, Alfred. I'll find the weakness, find the leverage, find a way to ensure that if he becomes a threat, I can stop him. He pauses. But first, I need to understand what we're actually dealing with, and why the hell did a vampire from another reality end up in Gotham? Elsewhere in the city, John Constantine lights a cigarette in his Newcastle apartment and stares at the whiskey in his other hand, feeling the dimensional breach's aftershocks rippling through the magical currents. He knows that sensation. Something massively powerful and deeply wrong just entered his reality, something that doesn't obey the rules his world's supernatural creatures follow. Bollocks, he mutters. That's a Class 5 entity, maybe Class 6. He takes a long drag, considering whether this problem is urgent enough to require his immediate attention or can be safely ignored for another day. The fact that whatever came through landed in Gotham instead of London makes the decision easier. Batman's problem now, poor bastard. But even Constantine, master of avoidance and calculated cowardice, knows he'll need to investigate eventually. Something that powerful doesn't stay contained in one city, and the magical signature it carries. It's familiar somehow. Old, vampiric but more than vampiric, carrying the weight of so many deaths that reality itself bends slightly around the entity. He pours himself another whiskey, a double this time, and begins pulling books from his shelves. If he's reading the signs correctly, and Constantine always reads the signs correctly when they matter, Gotham just received a visitor who's going to force everyone to reconsider what monster actually means. In Crime Alley, where Alucard first arrived, the homeless veteran who witnessed the dimensional breach rocks back and forth in his cardboard shelter, muttering prayers to gods who stopped listening years ago. He saw something tonight that his mind refuses to fully process, a tear in reality, a figure emerging from impossible geometry, and eyes that looked at Gotham's darkness with approval rather than horror. The devil's come to Gotham, he whispers to no one. The devil's come and he's wearing a red coat. But perhaps the devil isn't quite the right word. Perhaps what Gotham received isn't damnation but something far more complicated. A monster who once served a cause, who seeks worthy enemies and meaningful purpose, who treats death as a philosophical concept rather than a conclusion. The bat signal finally ignites an hour after Batman's encounter with Alucard, Commissioner Gordon's summons lighting the clouded sky. It's for a different crisis. The Riddler has taken hostages in a bank, demanding Batman solve his puzzles before people die. Standard Gotham nightmare. Standard heroic response. But as Batman grapples toward the emergency, he can't shake the memory of yellow eyes behind orange glasses, of a smile that had witnessed centuries and found them amusing, of a creature that treated mortal injury as a conversation piece. Gotham has survived many horrors, many invasions. Many monsters thought they could break the city's spirit or dominate its shadows. Tonight, for the first time in a long time, Batman isn't certain how this one will play out, because Alucard didn't threaten to destroy Gotham or rule it or purify it. He offered to help. And somehow, that's far more terrifying than another villain making grand pronouncements. The crimson-coated vampire keeps his appointment at Crime Alley's southeast corner, materializing from darkness exactly on time, that same amused smile playing across inhuman features. Batman drops from the rooftop, cape spreading like wings, and the two creatures of the night regard each other in the rain-slicked alley where Bruce Wayne's parents died. Punctual, Batman observes. "I was military once before I was a monster," Alucard replies. "Old habits." He looks around the alley and something shifts in his expression, recognition perhaps or resonance. "This place reeks of formative trauma. Let me guess, something terrible happened here that made you what you are. A death, a loss. The moment innocence shattered and purpose crystallized." "How?" "Because I can smell it in the stones," Alucard interrupts. "This is your origin point, isn't it? The place where Bruce Wayne died and Batman was born. We monsters always know each other's birthplaces." He meets Batman's eyes. "Mine was a battlefield in Wallachia where I impaled thousands to protect my people. Yours was this alley. Different methods, same theme, darkness forged in bloodshed, purpose born from loss." Batman's jaw tightens. "You don't know anything about me." "Don't I?" Alucard's smile is sharp. "You wear the monster's face to terrify criminals because you understand that fear is the most effective weapon against those who prey on the fearful. You've turned yourself into the nightmare that monsters check for under their beds. You've crossed every line except the one that matters. You don't kill, even when it would be easier, more permanent, more logical." He pauses. "You're a monster on a leash you fitted for yourself, and you've never once considered removing it. That takes a special kind of strength." "And you," Batman counters, "what's your leash?" Alucard's expression becomes distant. "I had a master once. A young woman named Integra Helsing who gave me purpose and boundaries. She's not here in this reality, which means..." He looks at Batman with sudden intensity. "I'm adrift, Dark Knight, unchained, a weapon without a wielder. That's why I'm offering you this partnership, because a monster without purpose is just a monster, and I've been that before. I didn't care for it." The rain intensifies, drumming on stone and steel, washing blood from the alley where the businessman died hours ago. Two creatures of darkness stand in that deluge, each recognizing in the other something fundamental about the nature of choosing to become something terrifying in service of something greater. "I need time," Batman finally says, "to verify your claims, to understand what you are, to prepare contingencies." "Of course you do," Alucard agrees easily. "You wouldn't be very good at this if you simply trusted the ancient vampire at face value. Take your time, detective. Run your analyses, consult your experts. I'll be here exploring this fascinating city, learning its rhythms." He turns to leave. "One suggestion, though, you might want to contact your magical specialists sooner rather than later. I can sense them in this city, and they've already sensed me. Better to control the narrative before Constantine decides I'm a problem that needs handling." "Constantine," Batman's voice sharpens. "How do you know about Constantine?" "I don't," Alucard admits, pausing mid-step. "But every reality has a cunning bastard who deals in magic and makes morally questionable choices for the greater good. I can smell him on the wind, cigarettes, whiskey, and the stink of demons who think they've made favorable bargains. He's already noticed me. The question is whether you'd prefer I meet him on your terms or his." With that, Alucard dissolves into shadow, flowing away into Gotham's darkness like he was born from it. Batman stands alone in Crime Alley, rain soaking through his cape, mind already racing through everything that just occurred. Alfred's voice crackles through the cowl's comm system. "I've been monitoring, sir. Shall I begin researching methods for containing or eliminating an apparently unkillable vampire?" "Yes," Bruce replies, his voice grim. "But Alfred, also research what it takes to control one. If he really wants a master, I need to know what that relationship looked like in his original reality. Knowledge is leverage." "Very good, sir. Though I feel I should point out that attempting to master an ancient vampire who treats death as inconvenient seems ambitious, even for you." Batman allows himself the smallest smile. When has that ever stopped me? As he grapples back into Gotham's heights, toward the Riddler crisis still unfolding, he can't shake the feeling that tonight changed something fundamental. Not about Gotham. The city has absorbed horrors that would break lesser places. But about the scope of what's possible, what counts as monster, and what happens when something powerful enough to rewrite the rules volunteers to play by them anyway. In his hidden sanctum, John Constantine finally makes the call to Zatanna. "Z, it's John. Yeah, I know it's late. Listen, something big just landed in Gotham. Vampire signature, but wrong, too much power, too many deaths attached to it, feels like something that shouldn't exist but does anyway." He listens to her response, then sighs. "No, I'm not handling it personally. Batman's already involved and you know how he gets about Gotham problems, but we should monitor. If this thing goes sideways," he trails off. "Yeah, that kind of sideways. The reality starts fraying kind." And in the space between heartbeats, in the shadows that even Gotham's streetlights can't fully banish, Alucard reforms. He stands on a rooftop overlooking the city's Gothic sprawl, the carnival of lights and sins, the eternal battle between order and entropy. "What a magnificent hunting ground," he murmurs to the night. "What glorious darkness, and what fascinating monsters calling themselves heroes." His smile widens. "I think I'm going to enjoy this reality very much." The bat signal burns against the clouds, a symbol of hope in the darkness. But tonight, Gotham has gained a new shadow, one that isn't here to break the city or save it or rule it. One that's here to discover whether gods and monsters can coexist, whether a vampire seeking redemption through service can find purpose in a universe where the line between hero and horror is drawn in blood. The no-life king has entered the DC universe. The question isn't whether he'll leave a mark, something that powerful always does. The question is whether that mark will be written in salvation or slaughter. John Constantine's apartment in Gotham's East End smells like every bad decision he's ever made. Stale cigarettes, cheaper whiskey, and the lingering ozone tang of magic that's been used too often for too little payoff. The walls are covered in occult symbols scratched into peeling wallpaper, protection wards that would make most demons think twice before dropping in uninvited. Most demons. Constantine has learned the hard way that the really dangerous ones don't need invitations. He's 3 drinks past sober and 2 cigarettes past caring when his wards start screaming. Not literally screaming. That would be too obvious, too dramatic. Instead, they hum with discordant frequency that makes his teeth ache and his magical senses shriek warnings. Something is approaching. Something with power that makes his carefully constructed protections feel like tissue paper in a hurricane. "Bollocks," he mutters, stubbing out his cigarette and reaching for the shotgun loaded with blessed rock salt. Not that he expects it to work against whatever's coming, but it's the principle of the thing. A man makes a stand, even when the stand is futile. The knock on his door is polite. 3 measured raps, the kind a gentleman makes when calling on someone he respects. Constantine finds this more terrifying than if his door had simply exploded inward. Polite monsters are always the worst kind. The wards are impressive. A cultured voice calls through the door, accent placing it somewhere between Victorian England and medieval Eastern Europe. Not powerful enough to actually stop me, but they'd certainly inconvenience most entities. You have my compliments, magician. Constantine debates pretending he's not home for exactly 2 seconds before accepting the futility. Whatever's on the other side already knows he's here, knows what he is, and is apparently in a conversational mood. Might as well see what fresh hell has come calling. He opens the door with a shotgun pointed casually at chest height, and finds himself facing a nightmare in a red coat. The vampire, because Constantine's senses are screaming vampire even though the signature is all wrong, stands in the dingy hallway like he's posing for a gothic romance novel cover. Tall, pale, theatrical in every gesture, with eyes hidden behind orange-tinted glasses that do nothing to mask the predatory intelligence behind them. But it's the weight that hits Constantine first. The sheer accumulated death clings to this creature like a second skin. Hundreds of thousands of souls, maybe millions, compressed into one impossibly dense supernatural existence. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, Constantine breathes. You're not from around here, are you? Alucard's smile could charm angels and terrify demons. How perceptive. No, I'm not. Your reality and mine have different rules, it seems. I'm adapting. He glances at the shotgun without concern. That won't work on me, but I appreciate the gesture. Shows spirit. Yeah, well, spirit's about all I've got most days. Constantine doesn't lower the gun, but he steps aside. You coming in? Or are we doing this in the hallway where Mrs. Chen from 3B can complain about the noise? Your hospitality is noted. Alucard steps inside with fluid grace, and Constantine's wards shriek louder before falling silent, as if recognizing the futility of protest. The vampire examines the apartment with the air of a critic at a gallery, taking in the occult detritus, the empty bottles, the general squalor of a man who gave up on appearances years ago. You live like this by choice or necessity. Bit of both. Constantine closes the door, finally lowering the shotgun. No point threatening something that treats violence as conversation. You're the reason half of Gotham's magical community is pissing themselves tonight. The dimensional breach in Crime Alley. Guilty, Alucard admits, settling into Constantine's threadbare armchair like it's a throne. Though I assure you my arrival was unintentional. I was. Between states of existence when your reality reached out and pulled me through. The Dark Multiverse has thin spots, it seems. Constantine goes very still. You came through the Dark Multiverse. That's not a tunnel, mate. That's a cesspool where nightmares breed. Nothing that comes through there is ever. He stops, really looking at Alucard, seeing past the theatrical presentation to the fundamental wrongness underneath. Fuck me. You're not corrupted by it. You walked through hell and came out clean. I've walked through many hells, Alucard replies. Literal and metaphorical, one more hardly registers. His tone becomes curious. But you, John Constantine, if my intuition serves, the Hellblazer, the man who cons demons and sacrifices friends for the greater good. You have quite the reputation in the magical community, and I've only been here a few hours. Yeah, well, fame's a bitch. Constantine pours 2 glasses of whiskey without asking, sliding one across the table to Alucard. Let me guess, you've already met Batman, probably scared the piss out of him even if he's too proud to show it, and now you're making the rounds to all the players who might be able to actually threaten you. Smart. Establishing pecking order early. Alucard accepts the glass but doesn't drink, simply holding it and examining the amber liquid. Batman is, interesting, a human who fights gods with preparation and willpower. We had a productive conversation about partnership and mutual benefit. His eyes flicker to Constantine. But you, Constantine, are the one I'm most curious about, because you smell like me. I smell like a 500-year-old vampire. Constantine takes a long drink. That's the least insulting thing anyone said to me this week. No, Alucard corrects. You smell like someone who's damned but keeps fighting anyway. Someone who's crossed every line, broken every rule, sacrificed everything sacred, and does it all for a cause you pretend not to care about. You're a monster pretending to be a man, Constantine. I'm a monster who stopped pretending. We're reflections. The accuracy of that assessment hits harder than Constantine wants to admit. He lights another cigarette, needing the ritual comfort. So what do you want from me then? Magical debriefing? Help understanding this reality's rules? Or are you here to determine if I'm a threat enough to require elimination? Information, Alucard says simply. Batman can tell me about Gotham's physical threats, the criminals, the rogues, the ones who dress up and make grand speeches. But you can tell me about the real dangers, the magical infrastructure of this world, the entities that actually matter, the lines I shouldn't cross if I want to avoid starting wars I'm not prepared for. Constantine considers this through a haze of smoke. The smart play is to lie, misdirect, and set this creature up to stumble into some magical bear trap that will neutralize him. The problem is that Constantine's survival instincts, honed by decades of dancing between disasters, are screaming that this vampire would see through any deception and respond poorly. Fine, he decides. Free consultation because I'm curious and drunk and you're the most interesting disaster that's walked through my door this month. But we're doing this properly. He stubs out the cigarette and begins pulling books from his shelves, grimoires, journals, texts that predate the printing press. Sit down, shut up, and let Professor Constantine explain why your ass is in more danger than you realize. Alucard's smile widens with genuine delight. I do so love educational experiences. For the next hour, Constantine lays out the metaphysical landscape of the DC universe with the brutal efficiency of a man who's learned these lessons through scars and betrayals. He explains the presence, capital P, the Abrahamic God who actually exists and occasionally takes interest in mortal affairs. He describes the endless, death, dream, destiny, destruction, desire, despair, and delirium, cosmic entities that embody fundamental concepts and cannot be killed, only ended when their concept ends. Death's the important one for you, Constantine emphasizes, jabbing his cigarette for punctuation. Not death lowercase, the natural process. Death uppercase, the pretty goth girl who shows up when you die and walks you to whatever's next. She's been around since the first living thing died and she'll be around after the last one croaks. And here's the kicker. She knows about every single death that's ever occurred. Every single one. Alucard's expression becomes thoughtful. In my world, death was a transition I learned to ignore. I've been killed thousands of times, absorbed millions of souls. I am, functionally, beyond death's reach. Yeah, about that. Constantine pours them both more whiskey. In your world, maybe, here, death's not something you negotiate with or bypass. She's not an obstacle or a rule to exploit. She's a fundamental law of reality given consciousness and purpose. You're walking around with millions of deaths attached to your soul. She's absolutely noticed you. The question is whether she considers you a curiosity or a problem. What's the difference? Curiosities get to keep existing, Constantine says bluntly. Problems get escorted to whatever afterlife they've earned, and if that afterlife doesn't exist yet, one gets created specifically for them. Death's polite about it. She's genuinely lovely, actually. But she's also utterly implacable. You can't intimidate her, can't threaten her, can't offer her deals. She is what she is, and what she is doesn't make exceptions. Alucard is silent for a long moment, processing this information. In his world, death was a suggestion he'd learned to decline. The Schrödinger paradox made him functionally omnipresent, existing in all states simultaneously, including alive and dead. But if this universe's death operates on a different metaphysical level, you're saying I may have an appointment I can't avoid, he finally says. I'm saying you've probably already had one, Constantine corrects. Death meets everyone when they die. Every version of you that's been killed, every soul you've absorbed, she's been there for all of it. She knows you, vampire. Whether she's waiting to see what you do next or planning to gently but firmly escort you to your final rest, that's anyone's guess. The casual terror of that statement sits heavy in the room. Constantine continues before Alucard can fully process the implications. Then there's the Lords of Order and Chaos, basically cosmic forces that maintain balance. Dr. Fate's the current avatar of Order, wears a helmet that's older than human civilization and contains the consciousness of a being called Nabu. He's powerful enough to reshape reality if he really wanted to, constrained only by his purpose to maintain cosmic balance. And Chaos, more scattered, more unpredictable by nature, but they balance each other out. Point is, you start fucking with reality too much, and your very existence might qualify and they take notice. Order might try to contain you. Chaos might try to use you. Neither option ends well. Constantine moves on, describing the magical community. Zatanna the sorceress, Etrigan the demon bound to human form, Madame Xanadu who sees futures, the phantom stranger who enforces cosmic justice. He explains Hell's bureaucracy, how it's ruled by various demon lords who'd see an entity like Alucard as either opportunity or threat to their domains. Then there's the big ones, he continues, lighting his fourth cigarette. The Spectre God's spirit of vengeance literally cannot be stopped when he's on mission. Killed entire countries when they pissed off the Almighty. You cross certain lines, he shows up, and then you learn what true helplessness feels like. What lines? Alucard asks, genuinely curious. Mass destruction of innocent life, usually. Genocide, apocalypse-level threats, that sort of thing. Individual murders, even spree killings. Spectre usually lets local heroes handle it. But if you decided to, say, drain a city dry for the power rush, he'd manifest and unmake you in ways that would make your previous deaths look pleasant. Alucard nods slowly. Noted. No citywide massacres. My restraint is already established. I was a weapon with rules in my world. I can maintain that here. Good, because the really terrifying part, Constantine leans forward. All of these entities, death, the endless, the lords, the spectre, their baseline, the metaphysical infrastructure of reality. Above them is the presence, who's beyond comprehension. Below them is the magical community, which includes some scary bastards. And running parallel is the new god situation. He explains Apocalypse and New Genesis, the fourth world mythology. Darkseid, tyrant god seeking the anti-life equation to eliminate free will across the universe. The new god's technology and power that makes most Earth-based magic look like party tricks. The mother boxes, the boom tubes, the omega beams that can disintegrate or lobotomize with a glance. Darkseid's the big concern, Constantine emphasizes. He's always looking for powerful entities to recruit, corrupt, or eliminate. You're powerful, clearly not from around here, and you've got millions of souls floating in your metaphysical gut. That's the kind of thing that gets his attention, and trust me, you don't want Darkseid's attention. Why not? Alucard asks, tone suggesting genuine interest rather than concern. In my world, I fought Nazis with magical capabilities, faced armies, confronted my own dark mirror. What makes this Darkseid so formidable? Constantine laughs, but there's no humor in it. Because he's a god, mate. Not metaphorically, literally. He's a new god, which means he exists on a higher plane of reality than we do. His true form is so massive, so fundamental to the concept of tyranny and evil, that if it fully manifested on Earth, the planet would crack under the weight of his presence. What you'd fight here is basically an avatar, a projection of his consciousness into a form that doesn't immediately break physics. And his omega beams bend space and time to track their target, and when they hit, they either disintegrate you completely or transport your consciousness to a hell dimension specifically designed for you. No dodging, no blocking, no surviving. Best case scenario, you're strong enough that they just hurt rather than kill. Worst case, you're erased from existence so thoroughly that reality forgets you were ever here. Alucard is quiet, processing this cascade of threats and powers that operate on scales he's never encountered. In his world, he was the ultimate predator, the pinnacle of vampiric evolution, constrained only by his master's will. Here, he's discovering he might be a mid-tier entity at best. "You're trying to scare me," he finally observes. "I'm trying to keep you alive," Constantine corrects, "or whatever passes for alive in your case. Look, I don't know what your world was like, but here, power scales differently. You think you're hot shit because you can regenerate from anything and you've got a few million souls backing your existence. That's impressive by Earth standards. You could probably take out most supervillains, give some superheroes a run for their money." He pauses to refill both glasses again. But this universe has aliens who punch planets in half for exercise. It's got speedsters who can run so fast they break into different timelines. It's got magicians who can rewrite reality with a backwards sentence. It's got a Martian who could telepathically shut down your brain before you knew he was there. And above all that, it's got cosmic entities who barely notice when galaxies collide. "You're saying I'm out of my depth." "I'm saying you need to understand the depth exists before you dive in," Constantine replies. "You've already caught Batman's attention, which means you'll catch the Justice League's attention eventually. They'll want to assess you, test you, and determine if you're a threat or ally. Handle that wrong and you'll have Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, and the others deciding you need to be contained. Handle it right," he shrugs. "Maybe you find your place. Maybe you become the thing Batman points at, problems he can't solve conventionally. Maybe you carve out territory as Gotham's supernatural enforcer." "Batman mentioned something similar," Alucard admits. "Partnership rather than opposition, using me as the weapon I am, pointed at appropriate targets." "You're considering it because you need purpose," Constantine guesses. "Because a monster without direction is just a monster, and you've spent enough time being merely monstrous. You want to be a monster for something, not just a monster because that's what you are." The accuracy stings. Alucard finds himself reassessing Constantine. Beneath the alcoholism and the calculated cynicism is a man who understands monsters because he's one himself. Different methodology, same fundamental damage. "What do you suggest?" Alucard asks, and it's the first time he's solicited advice rather than demanded or observed. Constantine considers this through a haze of smoke and whiskey. "You want my professional opinion. As someone who's survived this universe's bullshit for decades through sheer cunning and willingness to make terrible decisions." "Please." "Integrate slowly," Constantine says. "Don't announce yourself. Don't make grand gestures. Work with Batman. He's the safest entry point because he's human. He understands working with dangerous assets, and he's got enough credibility that if he vouches for you, others will at least give you a chance. Help with Gotham's supernatural problems. There's always some vampire coven or demon cult or zombie outbreak that needs handling. Prove you're useful." He leans forward, expression serious. "But here's the critical part, and I cannot stress this enough. Do not kill innocents. Not one. Not by accident, not in collateral damage, not because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. This universe has heroes with a capital H and they have standards. Break those standards and they'll come for you with everything they've got. And some of them." He trails off, remembering battles against Superman, confrontations with Wonder Woman, and the sheer overwhelming power the Justice League can bring to bear. "Some of them could actually put you down permanently, mate. For all your power, you're not invincible here." "I haven't killed anyone since arriving," Alucard says quietly. "Let a young vampire flee rather than destroy her. Spared gang members who attacked me out of ignorance. I was a weapon in my world, Constantine, but I was a weapon with rules. I can maintain those rules here." "Good, that's good." Constantine seems genuinely relieved. Because the other path, the path where you decide to test yourself against this reality's power structure, where you challenge heroes to prove your supremacy, where you treat this world like your personal hunting ground. That path ends with you being sealed in some hellish prison dimension, or having your soul scattered across the multiverse, or being erased from history itself. Dramatic, Alucard observes. Accurate, Constantine counters. I've seen it happen. Entities more powerful than you, thinking they're untouchable, learning that this universe has ways of dealing with untouchable threats. The Phantom Zone for aliens. The Phantom Stranger's Judgment for magical threats. Hell dimensions for demons. And if all else fails, there's always time travelers who can unmake you before you were ever born. Alucard absorbs this in silence, his theatrical demeanor falling away to reveal something more thoughtful underneath. Finally, he speaks. In my world, I served a young woman named Integra Helsing. She gave me purpose, direction, and boundaries. Without her, he trails off, looking at his hands as if seeing the centuries of blood on them. I need that structure again, that sense of serving something beyond myself. Batman offers that, but he's not my master. He's a potential partner. Then partner with him, Constantine advises. Let him set the rules of engagement. Let him point you at the monsters that need destroying. Gotham's got plenty, demons, vampires, supernatural threats that his gadgets can't handle efficiently. You want purpose. There's decades worth of purpose cleaning up this city's occult underbelly. And you, Alucard asks, where do you fit in this proposed arrangement? Constantine smirks. I'm the guy who keeps you updated on the magical side of things, who tells you when you're about to step on a metaphysical landmine, who occasionally calls in favors when something too big for Batman but perfect for Alucard comes slithering out of hell or drops through a dimensional portal. He pauses. And who will absolutely put you down if you go dark side, using methods you won't see coming until it's too late. I like you, vampire. You're interesting. But I've sacrificed friends for the greater good before, and I'll do it again if necessary. Honest, Alucard appreciates, refreshingly so. Honesty's cheap when you're already damned. Constantine raises his glass. So here's to unlikely alliances, to monsters pretending to be heroes, and to the vain hope that neither of us fucks this up so badly that reality itself needs to intervene. Alucard raises his own glass, finally taking a drink. The whiskey doesn't affect him. His physiology processes alcohol as efficiently as bullets, but the gesture matters. To monsters with rules. They drink in companionable silence, two creatures of darkness finding common ground in the recognition that they're both trying to be something more than what they are. Constantine lights another cigarette. Alucard watches the smoke curl toward the ceiling, reminded of his own ability to become shadow and mist. One more thing, Constantine says after a moment. Zatanna's going to want to meet you. She's the League's magical expert, a powerful sorceress, generally good person. She'll want to assess your threat level, probably run some mystical diagnostics, figure out exactly what you are in terms this reality understands. And if I refuse, then she gets suspicious, which makes Batman suspicious, which cascades into the League deciding you're a threat to be contained rather than an asset to be utilized. Your choice, but I recommend cooperation. Zatanna's reasonable, and if you're straight with her, she'll advocate for you. Fine, Alucard agrees. Arrange the meeting. I'll subject myself to whatever mystical prodding she deems necessary. His smile returns, sharp and amused. It's been centuries since anyone tried to figure out what I am. It should be entertaining. Constantine nods, already mentally composing the message to Zatanna. Got a new entity in town. Vampire adjacent, stupid powerful, claims to want to help. Needs magical vetting before Batman makes him an official Gotham asset. You free tomorrow. As if summoned by the thought, Constantine's phone buzzes. He glances at it and sighs. Speak of the devil. Z's been monitoring Gotham's magical fluctuations, sensed your arrival, wants to know if I'm handling it or if she should call in Dr. Fate. Tell her I'm handling it, Constantine replies to the text, but she should come by tomorrow for introductions. Neutral ground, maybe the house of mystery, magical territory but not hostile. Alucard stands, the movement fluid and predatory. I should go. I've taken enough of your evening and I have more of this city to explore. Thank you, Constantine. This conversation was educational. One last thing, Constantine stops him at the door. You said you came through the Dark Multiverse. That place doesn't just let things pass through without leaving a mark. You might be clean now, but there could be consequences. Entities from that cesspool are noticing the door you opened. Nightmare versions of this reality's heroes are taking an interest. If anything weird starts happening, weirder than usual for Gotham, you let me know immediately. Noted, Alucard says seriously. I'll monitor for dimensional instability. He pauses in the doorway. Why are you helping me, Constantine? What's in it for you? Constantine considers lying, then shrugs. Because I've got a feeling you're going to be important, mate. Don't know how yet, don't know why, but my gut says you're a piece on the board that could tip things one way or another when the next crisis hits. And they always hit. That's the one guarantee in this universe. So I'd rather have you on our side, with some understanding of the rules, than have you as an unknown variable fucking things up when we can least afford it. Pragmatic, Alucard observes. Survival strategy, Constantine corrects. Now get out of here before Mrs. Chen complains about the dramatic vampire standing in her hallway. Alucard dissolves into shadow with a theatrical flourish that makes Constantine roll his eyes. The vampire flows through the building's walls like smoke, leaving Constantine alone with his whiskey and cigarettes, and the uncomfortable awareness that Gotham's supernatural ecosystem just gained an apex predator. He pulls out his phone and starts making calls. First Zatanna, confirming tomorrow's meeting. Then Batman, not that the Dark Knight asked for updates, but Constantine's learned that keeping Batman informed prevents unpleasant surprises later. Finally, a text to Chaz, his long-suffering driver and occasional backup. Mate, you know how I said things couldn't get weirder in Gotham? I was wrong. So very wrong. Elsewhere in the city, Alucard reforms on a rooftop overlooking Arkham Asylum. The Gothic architecture appeals to his aesthetic sensibilities, and the concentrated madness radiating from within fascinates him. He can sense the inmates, the Joker's chaotic void where sanity should be, the Riddler's obsessive intelligence, the Scarecrow's addiction to fear, Two-Face's fractured duality. What beautiful monsters you've created, he murmurs to Gotham itself. What exquisite madness you've nurtured. No wonder Batman never leaves. There's always another nightmare to contain, always another darkness to oppose. A voice speaks from behind him, female and cultured and absolutely unsurprised by his presence. Most people don't call Arkham's inmates beautiful. Dangerous, yes. Tragic sometimes. But beautiful. Alucard turns to find a woman in a backwards tuxedo and top hat, with dark hair and the kind of stage presence that commands attention, even without Constantine's briefing. He'd recognize a magic user. The power radiates from her like heat from a fire. Zatanna Zatara, he greets, inclining his head. The Constantine said you'd want to meet me. I didn't expect it to be quite so soon. I was in the neighborhood, she replies, which probably means she teleported here the moment she sensed him. And when someone as powerful as you drops into Gotham without warning, we magical types get curious. She examines him with professional interest, eyes seeing past the physical to the metaphysical reality beneath. You're complicated. More complicated than anything I've expected. How many souls are you carrying? I stopped counting at 2 million, Alucard admits. After a while, the numbers become meaningless. They're all me now, absorbed and integrated, a legion compressed into one consciousness. Zatanna's expression doesn't change, but he senses her magical defenses strengthening slightly. Smart woman. That should be impossible. The human, or vampire, consciousness can't contain that many distinct souls without fragmenting. I'm not human, Alucard reminds her gently. Haven't been for 500 years, and the rules of my world apparently differ from yours. Constantine briefed me. I understand I'm an anomaly here. I'm willing to submit to whatever verification you require to confirm I'm not an immediate threat. You're being very cooperative for something that could probably kill half of Gotham before we stopped you. Because I don't want to kill half of Gotham, Alucard replies. I want purpose. I want to be useful. I want to be the weapon I was trained to be, pointed at targets that deserve destruction. Constantine suggested Batman could provide that direction. I'm in the process of establishing whether that partnership is viable. Zatanna nods slowly. Okay, tomorrow, House of Mystery, noon. We'll do a full magical assessment. Nothing invasive, but I need to understand what you are in terms that make sense to this reality's rules. Constantine will be there, probably Dr. Fate if he's available. If you're serious about integrating into the magical community, this is step one. I'll be there, Alucard confirms. Punctuality is a virtue I maintain. Good. Zatanna prepares to teleport, then pauses. One question, and I need an honest answer. You said you're carrying 2 million souls. Do any of them want out? Are you keeping them prisoner, or are they truly integrated? It's the right question, the ethical core beneath the power assessment. Alucard considers his response carefully. In my world, I absorb them in battle. They're part of me now, their experiences and memories woven into my consciousness. I don't hear distinct voices. They're not trapped, screaming passengers. They're just me, facets of who I've become through 5 centuries of warfare and death. That's not quite an answer, Zatanna observes. That's because I don't know if they could be separated even if I wanted to separate them, Alucard admits. I've never tried. In my world, it never occurred to me to try. Here, with your death who personifies the concept, with your magical laws that might operate differently. He trails off. That's something we should probably explore during your assessment. If I'm keeping 2 million souls from their proper rest, that's a problem I need to address. Zatanna's expression softens slightly. Tomorrow, then, we'll figure it out. She speaks a backwards phrase, and reality folds around her, teleporting her away in a flash of light and stage magic aesthetics. Alucard is alone again on the rooftop, looking out over Gotham's endless sprawl of suffering and survival. Somewhere down there, Batman is confronting the Riddler. Somewhere, Constantine is making his calls and arrangements. Somewhere, forces far beyond his comprehension are taking notice of the anomaly that just entered their reality. He thinks of Integra Helsing, the young woman who gave him purpose and kept him chained. He wonders if she exists in this reality, perhaps as an ancestor to this world's version of Van Helsing if such exists. He wonders if he'll find something similar here, not a master precisely, but a cause worth serving, a banner worth fighting under. I've been a monster for so long, he says to the night. Perhaps this reality will teach me how to be a monster with meaning again. The bat signal extinguishes in the distance, crisis resolved, at least temporarily. Alucard dissolves into mist, flowing through Gotham's airways, exploring the city that might become his new hunting ground or his new prison, depending on how the next few days unfold. In the Batcave, Bruce Wayne reviews footage of Alucard's conversation with Constantine. Because of course Batman has surveillance in Constantine's apartment, the magician knows it, and neither bothers pretending otherwise. He listens to the vampire's questions, his concerns about integration, his apparent genuine desire for purpose and rules. Alfred, he says quietly, what do you make of him? The butler, serving tea despite the late hour, considers this thoughtfully. If I may be candid, sir, he reminds me of you, not in methodology but in the fundamental drive. You made yourself a monster to fight monsters. He's a monster seeking to fight for something beyond himself. The difference is, you chose monstrosity. He had it thrust upon him 5 centuries ago. Can we trust him? Can we afford not to? Alfred counters. If even half of what he claims is accurate, he's powerful enough to be a significant threat if he turns hostile. But if he's sincere about wanting to help, about needing purpose and boundaries, he pauses. Having him as an ally instead of an enemy seems the wiser play, sir. Bruce nods, already running probability calculations. Alucard's power level, his vulnerabilities, which seem limited but must exist, the ways to contain him if necessary, the ways to utilize him if cooperative, the contingencies, always the contingencies. Schedule a meeting, Bruce decides. Tomorrow night after Zatanna's magical assessment. If she clears him, or at least doesn't declare him an immediate apocalyptic threat, we'll discuss terms of partnership, rules of engagement, boundaries, targets. Very good, sir. Should I prepare the kryptonite line containment cell as backup? Alfred, prepare everything as backup. We're negotiating with a vampire who's lived 500 years and absorbed millions of souls. If this goes wrong, I want options. When has anything in Gotham ever gone right, sir? Bruce allows himself a brief smile. Fair point. As the night deepens and Gotham settles into its usual symphony of sirens and screams, three forces converge on a single point: Batman's pragmatic assessment, Constantine's magical mediation, and Alucard's genuine search for purpose. Tomorrow will determine whether the DC universe gains an unusual ally or faces a threat that challenges their understanding of power, death, and redemption. But tonight, the No-Life King explores his new kingdom, learning its rhythms, sensing its darkness, and finding in Gotham's eternal struggle a reflection of his own 5 centuries of fighting against the void. This will do, he says to no one in particular. This will do nicely. The House of Mystery exists in all places and no places simultaneously, a structure that defies conventional geography by being wherever it needs to be. Today, it manifests in Gotham's magical quarter, that neighborhood tourists never quite find, where street signs change languages between glances and the pawn shops sell items that shouldn't exist. The building itself is Victorian Gothic at its finest, all peaked roofs and leaded windows, and an architecture that seems to fold in on itself in ways that hurt to look at directly. Alucard arrives precisely at noon, materializing from shadow on the front steps with his usual theatrical flair. He's dressed identically to the previous night: the crimson coat, the wide-brimmed hat, the orange-tinted glasses. Because when you've found a look that works for 5 centuries, why change it? He can sense the magical wards layered around the house like concentric shields, each one powerful enough to give him pause, all of them together forming a defense that would challenge even his considerable abilities. Impressive, he murmurs, running ethereal fingers along a protection sigil carved into the doorframe. This place is a fortress pretending to be a curiosity shop. The door opens before he can knock, revealing Constantine in the same rumpled trench coat from last night, cigarette dangling from his lips as if surgically attached. You're on time. I'm almost disappointed. I had money riding on you being fashionably late. Punctuality is respect, Alucard replies, stepping inside. My master taught me that. Some lessons persist beyond death and damnation. The House of Mystery's interior is exactly what one expects from a magical sanctuary, maintained by people who understand power, organized chaos that hides deliberate structure. Shelves groan under the weight of grimoires and artifacts. Mystical components in labeled jars share space with what appears to be normal whiskey bottles, and the skull on the mantelpiece might be decoration, or might be the desiccated remains of some entity that learned not to cross the house's inhabitants. Zatanna sits at a circular table in the main room, already surrounded by preparation materials, crystals arranged in geometric patterns, bowls of substances that glow faintly with inner light, and parchment covered in symbols that shift and writhe when viewed peripherally. She's dressed for business today, the stage magician's tuxedo replaced by practical working clothes that nonetheless maintain her theatrical aesthetic. Welcome to my office, she greets, gesturing to the chair opposite her. Or one of them. The house moves around, but this room stays constant, convenient for magical work that requires stability. Alucard settles into the offered chair with liquid grace, nodding the silver inlay in the armrests, not enough to burn him, but enough to ground magical energy if necessary. Smart design for interviewing potentially hostile entities. You've prepared thoroughly. You're carrying 2 million souls and enough power to register on every magical sensor from here to Atlantis, Zatanna replies matter-of-factly. Thorough is the minimum requirement. She spreads her hands over the crystals, speaking a backwards phrase that makes them pulse with synchronized light. This won't hurt, but you'll feel it. I'm going to examine your metaphysical structure, understand how you're built, figure out what rules govern your existence. Any objections? None, Alucard confirms. I'm here to be understood, not to hide. Do what you must. Constantine positions himself by the door, ostensibly lounging but actually standing exactly where he can activate the house's defensive wards if this goes sideways. He's seen too many magical assessments turn into combat to be casual, even with an apparently cooperative subject. Zatanna begins, speaking strings of backwards Latin that make the air thicken with power. The crystal's light intensifies, casting geometric shadows that don't quite align with the room's actual layout. Alucard feels her magic wash over him like a searchlight examining every aspect of his being, and he forces himself to remain still, to not react to the intrusion with violence as 5 centuries of combat instincts scream at him to do. She's thorough, he'll give her that. Her magic probes his vampiric nature, his regenerative capabilities, the vast well of absorbed souls that fuel his existence. He feels her pause when she encounters the Schrödinger paradox, that quantum impossibility that lets him exist everywhere and nowhere, alive and dead, present and absent all at once. It's damaged here, disrupted by this reality's different physical laws, but still fundamentally part of what he is. Jesus, Zatanna breathes, breaking concentration for a moment. You're not just a vampire, you're a paradox given consciousness. You exist in multiple states simultaneously, life, death, reality, non-reality. How is that possible? Long story involving quantum mechanics, Nazi occultism, and a very unfortunate cat metaphor, Alucard replies. The short version is that I absorbed someone with the ability to exist as long as he could observe himself existing. It made me slippery, hard to define, impossible to kill because I'm already dead and alive and neither and both. That explains why you feel wrong to magical senses, Constantine interjects. You're breaking rules just by existing. Schrödinger's vampire, simultaneously all states until observed, and even observation doesn't fully collapse you into one state. Zatanna resumes her examination, going deeper. She traces the connections between Alucard and the souls he's absorbed, expecting to find chains of binding or prison constructs. Instead, she discovers something far more complex and disturbing. The souls aren't imprisoned, they're integrated, woven into his consciousness so thoroughly that separating them would be like trying to separate threads from cloth. They're not screaming for release because they're no longer distinct enough to scream. This is, she searches for words, this is beyond necromancy, beyond soul magic as I understand it. You didn't just absorb these people, you made them part of your fundamental existence. They're not trapped, they're dissolved, incorporated. Is that a problem? Alucard asks, genuine concern coloring his tone. I don't know, Zatanna admits. It should be. Everything I know about soul magic says this is wrong, that you're committing cosmic-level violation just by existing, but she examines the structure more closely. There's no suffering, no individual consciousnesses trying to break free. It's like you took 2 million drops of water and mixed them into an ocean. They're still there, they're still part of the whole, but they're not separate drops anymore. Poetic, Constantine observes dryly. But it doesn't answer the big question. Does death have an opinion on this? Because 2 million souls that never reached her, never got their proper rest, never got judged and sent to their appropriate afterlives. That's exactly the kind of thing that catches her attention. As if summoned by the mention, the temperature in the House of Mystery drops 10 degrees. The light from Zatanna's crystals flickers, and every magical practitioner in the room feels it. A presence, vast and gentle and utterly implacable, watching them from somewhere adjacent to reality. "Fuck," Constantine says with feeling. "She's here. Death's actually here." The woman who appears in the room doesn't walk through the door or teleport in a flash of magic. She simply wasn't there and then was, as if reality politely rearranged itself to accommodate her presence. She's young-looking, with pale skin and dark hair and an ankh necklace that seems to absorb light. She's wearing practical black clothes that could be goth fashion or could be a funeral shroud depending on perspective. And when she smiles at the room's occupants, it's with the kindness of someone who knows everyone intimately because she's met them all at their most vulnerable moment. "Hello, John. Hello, Zatanna," Death greets, voice warm and casual. "I hope I'm not interrupting. I heard my name and thought I'd drop by." Her gaze settles on Alucard and her smile becomes thoughtful. "And you must be the anomaly, the vampire who carries millions of deaths but hasn't properly died himself. We should talk." Alucard rises from his chair, recognizing power when it manifests. This is death, not death the concept, but death the entity, the being Constantine warned him about. She radiates no threat, no hostility, but the sheer weight of her existence makes his combat instincts scream conflicting messages. Fight, flee, submit. None of those options feel adequate when facing a cosmic fundamental. "Lady Death," he says, inclining his head with respect born from 5 centuries of understanding hierarchies. "I'm honored and concerned. Constantine suggested you might take issue with my existence." "Oh, I wouldn't say issue," Death replies, settling into the chair Zatanna hastily vacates. "More like curiosity. You're carrying a lot of my work with you, you know. 2 million souls that should have passed through me, that should have moved on to whatever comes next. Instead, they're woven into you like a very complicated tapestry." She examines him with professional interest. "I've been watching you since you arrived, trying to figure out if you're a problem or just an interesting edge case." "And your conclusion?" Alucard asks, genuinely uncertain for perhaps the first time since arriving in this reality. Death considers this, tilting her head in a gesture that's almost bird-like. "You're not keeping them prisoners, Zatanna's right about that. You've integrated them so completely that they're you now. No suffering, no denied rest, just transformation. In your original reality, I suspect that would have been fine. Different rules, different metaphysics." She pauses. "But here, in my reality, souls have destinations, purposes, cycles they're meant to complete. And you've interrupted that cycle for 2 million people." "I didn't choose to come here," Alucard says quietly. "The dimensional breach was beyond my control. If I could return them." "You can't," Death interrupts gently. "They're too far gone, too integrated. Separating them now would destroy you and probably them too, since they're not really separate anymore. It would be like trying to unbake a cake, theoretically possible with enough power, but the result wouldn't be recognizable as the original ingredients." Constantine lights a cigarette with shaking hands, the only outward sign of his tension. "So what happens now? You're not here just for a social call." "No, I'm here because Alucard needs to understand something important," Death replies, her attention never leaving the vampire. "Those 2 million souls you're carrying, they're your responsibility now. Not in the sense that you're obligated to free them, we've established that's not feasible, but in the sense that you need to honor them, to use the power they've given you for something worthwhile. They died, you absorbed them, and now you carry their deaths as part of your existence. That's a heavy burden." "I've always known that," Alucard says softly. "Every soul I absorbed in battle, every enemy I consumed, they're part of me. Their experiences, their memories, their final moments. I carry all of it." "Good," Death nods approvingly. "Because here's what I need from you, vampire who exists between states. You're going to die eventually, not today, probably not for a long time, but eventually. This universe has ways of killing even unkillable things. And when you do die, when you finally cross over for real, I'm going to be there. We're going to have a very long conversation about those 2 million souls, and you're going to account for how you used their power. Did you use it to protect? To destroy what needed destroying? To serve something greater than yourself?" She leans forward, and despite her gentle demeanor, Alucard feels the weight of cosmic judgment behind her words. Or did you use it selfishly? To aggrandize yourself, to satisfy your own desires, to be the monster you could be rather than the weapon you claim to be? Because how you answer that question, how you live between now and then, will determine what happens to all those souls when you finally let them go. That's the deal, Alucard asks. Serve honorably, and they rest peacefully when I finally die for real. That's not a deal, that's just reality, Death corrects. I'm not negotiating with you, vampire. I'm explaining how things work. You made yourself responsible for 2 million deaths. Now you have to live or not live with that responsibility. The fact that you seem to understand this, that you came here willing to be examined and judged, that you're actively seeking purpose rather than just indulging your power. She smiles again. That speaks well of you. It's why I'm not immediately doing something drastic. Constantine lets out a breath he didn't know he was holding. So he gets to stay. The Council of Death approves his visa. There is no council, Death says with amusement. Just me doing what I do. And yes, Alucard can stay. He can work with Batman, help with Gotham's supernatural problems, be the weapon you're all clearly planning to make him. But he needs to understand that I'm watching. That every choice he makes, every life he takes or spares, every action he performs, it all matters. It all goes into the final accounting. She stands, preparing to depart as casually as she arrived. One more thing, vampire. You mentioned existing between states, being both alive and dead through the Schrödinger effect. That's fascinating, and in your world it made you essentially unkillable. Here, though, her expression becomes almost playful. I'm Death. I exist in all states too. If I wanted to collapse your quantum waveform, force you into a single state of actually dead, I could do that. I probably won't, because you're interesting and you seem like you're trying, but I could. Keep that in mind if you're ever tempted to test boundaries. Noted, Alucard replies, finding his voice. Thank you for the clarity, Lady Death, and for the mercy, I suppose, for not immediately judging me a violation that needs correcting. Everyone dies eventually, Death says philosophically. Even you, sooner or later. I can afford to be patient. She looks at Constantine and Zatanna. Take care of him, you too. Help him figure out how to be useful. He's genuinely trying, which is more than I can say for most beings who accumulate this much power. And then she's gone. Simply not there anymore, leaving behind a room full of magical practitioners who collectively exhale in relief. Well, Zatanna says after a long moment, that was terrifying and reassuring in equal measure. That was Death giving her blessing, Constantine translates, lighting a fresh cigarette from the smoldering remains of the last. Saying you can stay, but behave or I'll personally escort you to whatever afterlife you've earned. Could have gone worse. Could have gone much worse, Zatanna agrees, resuming her seat and looking at Alucard with new respect. You just got judged by a cosmic fundamental and passed. That's unprecedented for an entity with your power level. Alucard slowly sits back down, processing everything that just occurred. In his world, death was something he'd learned to circumvent, to treat as a temporary inconvenience. Here, death is a person, a kind, gentle person, but one with absolute authority over his eventual fate. The weight of 2 million souls he carries suddenly feels more immediate, more significant. I need to do this right, he says quietly. Not just for my sake, but for theirs. All those people I absorbed, all those deaths I carry, they deserve better than being fuel for a monster's vanity. Good mindset, Constantine approves. Now let's finish the assessment so Zatanna can write up a report that doesn't make Batman paranoid, more paranoid. Zatanna resumes her magical examination, but the tone has shifted. She's no longer checking if Alucard is dangerous. Death's judgment has settled that question. Now she's cataloging his abilities for practical purposes, understanding his limitations and strengths so they can be utilized effectively. She confirms his regenerative capabilities, near instantaneous healing from any physical damage short of complete metaphysical annihilation. His shapeshifting, capable of becoming mist, shadow, bats, hellhounds, and eldritch forms that hurt to perceive. His superhuman physical attributes, strength to match mid-level superhumans, speed that approaches but doesn't exceed speedster levels, durability that would require god-tier weapons to permanently breach. You're physically weaker than Superman, she notes, but your versatility makes up for it. You can't punch through buildings, but you can become intangible, regenerate from being blown apart, and summon familiars from your soul army. Different power set, different tactical applications. She examines his Schrödinger state more carefully, understanding now why it feels damaged. Your quantum existence conflicts with this reality's speed force, the extra-dimensional energy that governs velocity and time manipulation here. The speed force enforces certain temporal rules, and your exist in all states nature clashes with that. You're not fully omnipresent here like you were in your world. You can still do the shadow teleportation thing, but true quantum existence is suppressed. Limiting but not crippling, Alucard assesses. I can work with reduced omnipresence. Finally, Zatanna examines his vulnerabilities. Holy objects don't affect you much. Whatever made you vampire clearly wasn't Christian mythology-based. Sunlight. Inconvenient but not fatal, Alucard replies. I prefer darkness for aesthetic reasons, but I've walked in daylight before when necessary. Silver, wooden stakes. Please, Alucard says with amusement. I'm 500 years old and I fought Nazis with occult weapons. If silver or wood could stop me, I'd have been stopped long ago. Magic, though, Constantine interjects. Magic can hurt you proper. It's not physical damage you regenerate from, it's metaphysical alteration. Zatanna could trap you in a binding circle. Dr. Fate could rewrite your existence parameters. The Spectre could judge you fundamentally. Those are your real vulnerabilities. And Batman's contingency if I go rogue? Alucard asks directly. Zatanna and Constantine exchange glances. Constantine answers. Magical containment first. Bind you in a circle designed to hold quantum entities. If that fails, they'll call in Superman or Wonder Woman for physical containment while they prep something more permanent. The final resort is the Phantom Zone, an extra-dimensional prison that's held Kryptonians. Your Schrödinger state might let you escape, but between the zone's weird physics and the League's magical experts maintaining the barriers. He shrugs. You'd be contained, eventually. Fair enough, Alucard acknowledges. I'd expect nothing less than thorough planning. Batman wouldn't be very good at his job otherwise. Zatanna completes her assessment, the crystal's light fading as she releases the magical scan. Okay, here's my official evaluation for the League. Alucard is a Class 5 metaphysical entity, powerful enough to be a significant threat if hostile, but not apocalyptic on his own. His power set is versatile and difficult to counter conventionally, but magic remains an effective check on his abilities. Psychologically, he appears stable, demonstrates understanding of his responsibilities, and genuinely seems to be seeking positive integration into this reality's heroic framework. She pauses, making sure Alucard is listening. However, he's carrying 2 million absorbed souls, which makes him a cosmic-level ethical concern. Death herself has judged him acceptable for now, which carries significant weight. My recommendation is cautious alliance. Utilize his capabilities for supernatural threats while maintaining oversight and boundaries. Essentially, treat him like we treat Constantine. Useful, powerful, ethically complicated, but ultimately on our side. Hey, Constantine protests mildly. I resent the comparison. I'm nowhere near as powerful as him. But you're equally ethically complicated, Zatanna counters, and you're both monsters trying to do some good before your respective hells catch up with you. Fair point, Constantine concedes. Alucard stands, the assessment complete. Thank you both, for the thoroughness, for the honesty, and for not immediately trying to seal me in a hell dimension. It's been educational. One more thing before you go, Zatanna says, pulling an object from her coat, a small crystal pendant on a silver chain. This is attuned to you now. It'll let me track your location and magical activity. Not surveillance, just a safety measure. If you go dark side, if something possesses you, if you lose control, this lets me know immediately and respond. Wear it. Alucard takes the pendant, examining it thoughtfully. It's a leash, effectively. A way for the magical community to keep tabs on their newest anomaly. But it's also trust. They're giving him the leash openly, explaining its function, rather than binding him with hidden spells. I'll wear it, he agrees, clasping the chain around his neck. The crystal settles against his chest, pulsing faintly with a synchronized heartbeat he doesn't technically have. Your transparency is appreciated. We're taking a risk on you, Zatanna says seriously. Don't make us regret it. I'll try my very best not to, Alucard replies with genuine sincerity. Constantine walks him to the door, lighting another cigarette in the eternal chain. Tonight, Batman wants to meet, officially establish the partnership. He'll have rules, boundaries, and expectations. You good with that? I lived under rules for decades, Alucard reminds him. My master Integra gave me very clear directives. Protect England, destroy monsters that threatened humanity, and never act without her explicit command. I can operate within boundaries. In some ways, I prefer it. Removes ambiguity. Good man, Constantine says, then corrects himself. Good monster. Whatever. Point is, you've got allies now. Use us. Ask questions. Don't try to lone wolf just because you're powerful. This universe will humble you if you get cocky. Your world humbled me the moment death appeared in that room, Alucard admits. In my reality, I was the apex predator. Here, I'm realizing I'm mid-tier at best. Powerful enough to be useful, dangerous enough to require monitoring, but not remotely close to the top of the hierarchy. That's a healthy perspective, Constantine approves. Keep it. A lot of beings more powerful than you have gotten themselves destroyed because they overestimated their importance. Alucard steps out of the house of mystery onto Gotham streets, which have somehow shifted during his time inside. He was in the magical quarter when he entered. Now he's near the docks, the house having relocated itself according to its own logic. The sun is setting, painting the city in shades of amber and shadow, and Gotham's transformation from day to night is beginning. He has hours until he meets with Batman. Hours to explore, to observe, to begin understanding the city he's apparently adopted. He dissolves into mist, flowing through the streets like a curious ghost, watching Gotham's evening routine unfold. A mugging interrupted by a figure in green arrow, if Alucard's research serves, helping Batman occasionally with Gotham's overflow. The vampire watches the arrow-using hero disarm 3 attackers with non-lethal precision, delivering justice without death. Interesting methodology. A drug deal going south near the docks, gunfire erupting, and suddenly there's a red and yellow blur. The Flash, moving so fast Alucard can barely track him. The speedster disarms everyone, ties them up, and leaves a note for GCPD in the 3 seconds it takes for the first bullet to hit the ground. That's power. That's the kind of ability Alucard would need his full Schrödinger state to counter, and even then, it would be close. Near Arkham, he senses something, a presence that makes his vampiric instincts scream warnings. He reforms in corporeal state on a rooftop and looks down to see a figure in a dark cloak with a hood, carrying a mystical staff. Dr. Fate, based on Constantine's description. The Lord of Order is simply standing there, staring up at Alucard with golden eyes that see through all pretense. They regard each other across the distance, 2 powerful beings evaluating threat levels. Finally, Dr. Fate speaks, voice resonating with cosmic weight. Alucard, the anomaly. The paradox vampire carries millions of deaths. We are aware of you. I've been thoroughly examined today, Alucard replies. Death herself approved my presence. Death judges from her domain, we judge from ours. Dr. Fate's helmet tilts slightly. You are chaos masquerading as order, a violation of natural law held together by will and quantum impossibility. We find you, acceptable for now. But know this, vampire, If you disrupt the balance, if your presence threatens reality's coherence, we will act. And our methods are not as gentle as death's patience." "Understood," Alucard says simply. "I have no intention of disrupting anything. I'm here to help, not harm." "Intentions shift," Dr. Fate observes. "Power corrupts. We will watch." And then the sorcerer is simply gone, teleported away to wherever the Lords of Order spend their time when not issuing cosmic warnings. "Everyone wants to watch me," Alucard mutters. "Death watches, Fate watches, Constantine and Zatanna watch through their crystal. I'm the most observed monster in Gotham, and that's saying something in a city where Batman monitors everyone." But he understands the logic. He's an unknown variable in a carefully balanced equation. They need to ensure he doesn't tip into chaos, don't destabilize systems that have functioned for decades. It's pragmatic, and he can respect pragmatism even when it makes him uncomfortable. As night fully claims Gotham, Alucard makes his way to the rendezvous point Batman specified, the rooftop of the old Wayne Tower, currently unused while the company operates from newer facilities. It's symbolic meeting here. Bruce Wayne's legacy literally beneath their feet while they discuss whether a vampire can serve justice. Batman is already there when Alucard arrives, cape billowing in the wind, white eyes of his cowl reflecting city lights. He's not alone. Wonder Woman stands beside him, armor gleaming, lasso of truth coiled at her hip. The Amazon warrior princess, here to assess or to serve as backup if this conversation goes poorly. "Alucard," Batman greets without preamble. "Wonder Woman wanted to meet you. She has concerns." "Princess Diana," Alucard greets with courtly respect, bowing slightly. "I'm honored, and I understand your concerns. I would be concerned too if an unkillable vampire from another reality appeared in my world claiming to want partnership." Diana studies him with warrior's eyes, seeing past the theatrical presentation to the genuine predator beneath. "Zatanna sent her assessment. Death's judgment weighs heavily in your favor, but I needed to look you in the eyes myself, vampire, to see if you carry the heart of a warrior or a murderer." "I've been both," Alucard admits honestly. "I was Vlad the Impaler before I was a vampire. I killed tens of thousands protecting my people, using methods so brutal my enemies called me a monster long before I actually became one. Then I was turned, became Dracula, and terrorized Europe for centuries. Finally defeated, enslaved, and weaponized by the Helsing family. I've been a warrior, a monster, and a weapon. What I want to be now is something better." Diana nods slowly. "Honesty, that's a start." She approaches him, uncoiling the lasso of truth. "I'd like you to hold this, voluntarily, just for a moment." Alucard understands what she's asking, proof that his words match his intentions. He extends his hand, and Diana wraps the golden lasso around his wrist. The magic activates immediately, and Alucard feels it, a compulsion to speak only truth, to lay bare his genuine motivations. "Do you intend harm to this world?" Diana asks. "No," Alucard answers, the lasso ensuring honesty. "I want to serve. I want purpose. I want to be the weapon I was trained to be, pointed at enemies that deserve destruction. I'm tired of being merely monstrous. If ordered to kill an innocent, would you refuse?" "Yes," Alucard says immediately. "I've killed innocents before, in war, in feeding when I was young and undisciplined. I carry those deaths with me. I won't add to them. I fight monsters now, not victims." "What do you fear?" Diana asks the more probing question. The lasso pulls truth from depths Alucard hasn't examined. "I fear purposelessness. I fear being the monster without direction that I was before Integra gave me meaning. I fear that I'll exist for centuries more, accumulating power and deaths, and it will all mean nothing. I fear that death's final judgment will find me wanting, and those 2 million souls I carry will have been wasted on a creature too selfish to honor them." Diana releases the lasso, satisfied. He speaks truth. His intentions are genuine. She looks at Batman. "I support the partnership with appropriate oversight." Batman nods, having expected this outcome but needing Diana's confirmation. Then let's establish parameters. You work supernatural threats in Gotham that require your specific capabilities. You don't act without authorization from either me or the magical community. You don't kill humans unless they're genuinely beyond redemption, and that judgment gets reviewed. You wear Zatanna's tracker, you report regularly, and you accept that we'll have contingencies if you go rogue. Acceptable, Alucard agrees. What constitutes beyond redemption? Demons, entities that exist only to harm, supernatural creatures actively killing innocents. The Joker, if you get the chance, Batman adds, and there's weight in that statement. But not common criminals, not people who can be rehabilitated. We save when we can, only destroy when we must. Your no-kill rule, Alucard observes. Does it extend to me? Am I expected to never kill? Batman's jaw tightens. I don't kill, that's my rule, my line, but I recognize you're different. You were a weapon designed to destroy monsters. I won't demand you follow my exact code, but I will demand restraint, judgment, and accountability. You take a life, you justify it. To me, to Zatanna, to yourself, every death matters. Every death matters, Alucard echoes. Yes, I can work with that. Diana speaks again. There will be tests. The League will want to assess your capabilities directly, see how you perform in controlled scenarios. Superman especially will want to meet you. He's protective of this world, and a being with your power concerns him. I welcome the assessment, Alucard replies. I have nothing to hide and everything to prove. Batman produces a small device, a communication earpiece Bat Family standard. This connects you to me directly. Encrypted, secure, monitored only by Alfred and my systems. When I have something that needs your attention, I'll call. When you encounter something beyond your parameters, you call me. Clear. Alucard takes the earpiece, fitting it carefully. Crystal clear. First assignment, Batman continues. There's a vampire coven operating in Old Gotham near the abandoned Cathedral District. 12 vampires led by something calling itself the Crimson Court. They've killed 16 people in the last month, all drained completely. GCPD thinks it's a serial killer. I know better. But they're organized, they're fast, and conventional methods are inefficient. You want me to eliminate them, Alucard understands. I want you to assess them first, Batman corrects. Determine if they're mindless feeders or if there's intelligence, organization, possibility of rehabilitation. If they can be reasoned with, we try negotiation. If they're just predators, he trails off meaningfully. Then I do what I was made for, Alucard finishes. When? Tonight, I'll provide coordinates. Diana will observe from a distance, not because we don't trust you, but because we need to see you work, to understand your methods, to verify you can control yourself when violence is authorized. Understandable, Alucard agrees. Shall we proceed now, or do you have more bureaucracy? Diana smiles slightly. He has your impatience, Bruce. I'm not impatient, Batman replies. I'm efficient. Of course you are, Diana says diplomatically. She turns to Alucard. Good luck, vampire. Prove yourself worthy of the chance we're giving you. I'll do my best, princess, Alucard promises. For those 2 million souls I carry, I have to. Old Gotham's Cathedral District is a monument to urban decay, a neighborhood where even the muggers have enough sense to avoid the shadows. The churches here date back to the city's founding, Gothic spires reaching toward heaven, while their foundations sink deeper into corruption. Most have been abandoned for decades, their congregations fleeing to safer suburbs, leaving behind hollow stone husks that attract only squatters, cultists, and things that prefer darkness to daylight. The cathedral Batman identified sits at the district's heart. Saint Dumas, once magnificent, is now a rotting carcass of stained glass and crumbling masonry. Alucard approaches on foot rather than shadow teleporting, wanting to assess the area with all his senses. The night is cold enough to see breath misting, though he produces no such vapor, his undead physiology maintaining ambient temperature. He can smell them before he sees the cathedral, vampire scent, that particular mixture of old blood, preserved flesh, and predatory musk that marks his kind across realities. 12 distinct signatures, just as Batman said. But there's something else, something that makes his combat instincts sharpen. These vampires aren't scattered or hiding. They're gathered, organized, waiting. They know I'm coming, he murmurs into the comm unit. This isn't an ambush scenario. This is a reception. Batman's voice crackles in his ear, monitoring from somewhere above. Pull back if you're compromised. Compromised? Alucard's amusement colors his tone. I'm a 500-year-old vampire who fought Nazis and lived. 12 young bloodsuckers aren't a threat, but they are interesting. I'm proceeding. He pushes open the cathedral's main doors with a theatrical flourish, announcing his presence deliberately. The interior is exactly what he expected, pews rotting into kindling, stained glass windows broken or obscured by grime, and at the altar, 12 figures arranged in a mockery of a congregation. They're all young vampires by his estimation, none older than a century based on the power signatures. Well-fed, well-groomed, wearing designer clothes that seem absurdly out of place in this decaying sanctuary. At the center, seated on what was once the bishop's throne, is their leader. She's striking, blonde, elegant, with the kind of beauty that suggests she chose her turning carefully to preserve peak aesthetics. She wears a red dress that probably cost more than most Gothamites earn in a year, and her smile is all predatory confidence. Alucard she greets, rising with liquid grace. The no-life king, Dracula's heir, the vampire who conquered death. We've been expecting you since we felt your presence enter Gotham 3 nights ago. You have me at a disadvantage, Alucard replies, removing his hat in a courtly gesture. You know my titles, but I don't know yours. I am Carmilla, she introduces herself with a slight curtsy that mocks propriety. Matriarch of the Crimson Court, oldest vampire in Gotham. Well, I was until you arrived. These are my children, my court, my family. She gestures to the 11 others who watch Alucard with expressions ranging from curiosity to hunger to fear. We've ruled this city's shadows for 80 years, feeding carefully, maintaining balance, until the Batman came. Carefully. Alucard questions, letting skepticism color his tone. Batman sent me because you've killed 16 humans in 1 month. That's not careful, that's sloppy. Carmilla's expression hardens. That's necessity. The Batman and his little birds have made feeding nearly impossible. They've organized the city, installed cameras, trained the police, and created a network of watchers. We used to take 1 or 2 homeless people per month, people no one would miss. Now, every disappearance is investigated, every body tracked, every shadow monitored. We're starving, Alucard. We kill because we must or we die. Alucard walks slowly down the center aisle, examining the assembled vampires. They're thin, he realizes. Not starving yet, but getting there. Their eyes hold the desperate edge of predators running low on prey. Carmilla isn't lying. They're genuinely struggling to feed in Batman's Gotham. So you've come to 3 options, he observes. Leave Gotham, submit to Batman's authority and find alternative feeding methods, or accelerate your predation until he's forced to destroy you. You've chosen option 3. We've chosen survival, Carmilla corrects. This is our territory. We've built a society here, a culture, a court. We won't be driven out by a human who thinks mortality gives him authority over the night. Her eyes flash crimson. And now you arrive, another vampire far more powerful who apparently serves this human. Tell me, Alucard, how does it feel to be a lapdog? Does the great Dracula's successor enjoy fetching for mortals? The insult is calculated, designed to provoke. Alucard feels the weight of it, the assumption that he's betrayed his nature by working with Batman. But he's been insulted by better entities than a young vampire with delusions of grandeur. I was a weapon for 60 years, he replies calmly, aimed by a young woman whose spine was stronger than most armies. She gave me purpose, boundaries, and meaning. I served because service gave my existence value beyond simple monstrosity. He stops at the altar's base, looking up at Carmilla. Batman offers the same purpose, direction, and targets worthy of my attention. What do you offer besides hunger dressed in designer clothes? Freedom, Carmilla says immediately. The vampire's birthright. We are apex predators, Alucard. We exist above humanity, beyond their laws, exempt from their morality. You've chained yourself to their limitations when you could be ruling them. I ruled once, Alucard replies, and there's centuries of weariness in his tone. Vlad the Impaler, Dracula the Tyrant. I ruled through fear and blood, and it meant nothing. Power without purpose is just sophisticated emptiness. He looks at the other vampires. Is that what you want? To feed and hide and call it freedom? To kill 16 people for survival and call it necessity? One of the younger vampires, a man who can't be more than 20 years dead, speaks up. What else can we do? We're vampires. We need blood, human blood. We can't survive on animal blood like some vegetarian fantasy. We've tried. We weaken, we deteriorate, we eventually go feral. The only sustainable food source is humans, and humans resist being food. Have you considered asking? Alucard questions. The cathedral goes silent. Carmilla stares at him like he's spoken nonsense. Asking. For voluntary donors, Alucard clarifies. In my world, the Helsing organization employed humans who understood what I was and provided blood when needed. Medical bags, primarily, but occasionally, direct feeding from willing participants who were compensated and monitored. It's not the same as hunting. Not as satisfying to the predator instinct, but it sustains. You're suggesting we negotiate with food, Carmilla says flatly. I'm suggesting you negotiate with intelligent beings who might be convinced that controlled donation is preferable to being hunted, Alucard counters. Gotham has blood banks. It has hospitals. It has an underground economy that will sell anything for the right price. You've been vampires for decades, and you never thought to explore alternatives to predation. The young vampire who spoke before looks thoughtful. Could that work just buying blood or hearing donors? It works in medical research facilities, another vampire, a woman with sharp features, adds hesitantly. I was a phlebotomist before I was turned. Blood can be purchased, stored, and transported if we had money. She trails off, looking at Carmilla. The matriarch's expression is thunderous. We are not cattle begging for slaughterhouse scraps. We are vampires. We hunt, we feed, we dominate. That is our nature. That was your nature, Alucard corrects, and his tone has gone cold. But nature changes or dies. This city has a protector now, multiple protectors. Superman patrols the skis. The Flash monitors the streets. Batman owns the shadows you thought were yours. Wonder Woman would drive her sword through your heart without hesitation if she caught you mid-kill. You can adapt or you can die. Those are your options. Carmilla stands, power radiating from her in waves. And if we choose to fight? To take this city back from the humans who think they own the night. Then I kill you, Alucard says simply. All of you. Not because I want to, but because Batman sent me here to assess whether you're salvageable or just predators wearing human faces. Right now, you're failing the assessment. The other vampires tense, preparing for violence. But Alucard doesn't move, doesn't shift into combat stance. He just stands there, radiating the absolute confidence of a being who knows the outcome of any confrontation before it begins. I've fought armies, Carmilla. I've battled vampire kings and Nazi zealots and supernatural entities that make your worst nightmares look like children's stories. I am carrying 2 million absorbed souls as a power source and have existed through 5 centuries of warfare. You're 80 years old with 11 malnourished followers. If you fight me, you die. Quickly if you're lucky, slowly if you're not. You're bluffing, Carmilla accuses, trying to intimidate us into submission. Alucard sighs. Batman, am I cleared for demonstration? Minimal force, Batman's voice responds through the calm. Show them what they're facing without causing permanent harm. Understood, Alucard replies. He looks at Carmilla. Last chance. Stand down, discuss alternatives and live, or test me and learn why they call me the no-life king. Carmilla's response is to move, vampire speed, crossing the distance between them in a blur that would overwhelm most opponents. Her hand extends into claws, aiming for Alucard's throat with killing intent. Alucard doesn't dodge. He lets her claws pierce his neck, let her feel the moment of triumph as her attack connects. Then he grabs her wrist with casual strength, and the triumph turns to horror as she realizes she can't pull free. Too slow, he observes clinically. The neck wound is already closing, flesh knitting back together in real time. Too weak, too confident. He releases her wrist and backhands her, not with killing force, but enough to send her flying across the cathedral to crash into the far wall with impact that cracks stone. The other vampires react, all 11 moving at once. They're coordinated, attacking from multiple angles with the desperation of creatures who know they're outmatched but have no choice except to fight. Alucard could end this in seconds with his full power. Instead, he demonstrates restraint, using only physical capabilities to counter their assault. He's faster than they are, stronger and more experienced. 500 years of combat against 1 century maximum. It's not even close to fair. He catches one vampire mid-lunge, throws him into 2 others, sidesteps an attack from behind, grabs the attacker by the head, and slams her face first into a pew hard enough to stun but not kill. Ducks under claws, rises with an uppercut that lifts a male vampire off his feet. Every movement is efficient, controlled, and designed to incapacitate without killing. In 30 seconds, 11 vampires are scattered around the cathedral, groaning in pain but alive. Alucard stands in the center of the devastation, coat unstained, breathing unhurried despite not actually needing to breathe. It was barely an exercise. Carmilla pulls herself from the wall, coughing blood that steams slightly in the cold air. What are you? I told you, Alucard replies patiently. I'm the no-life king. I'm what happens when vampire evolution runs for 5 centuries without stopping. I'm what you could become given enough time and enough death. He walks toward her, each step measured. But you won't get that time, Carmilla. Batman will hunt you. The League will hunt you. And eventually, they'll send someone who won't show restraint like I just did. They'll send Wonder Woman, who will decapitate you with her God-forged sword. Or Superman, who will throw you into the sun. Or Constantine, who will trap your soul in a hell dimension specifically designed for your sins. He crouches beside her, meeting her eyes. Or you could choose differently. You could accept that this isn't your world anymore, that you're not apex predators, you're endangered species clinging to relevance. And like all endangered species, you have 2 options: adapt to the new environment or go extinct. What would adaptation look like? She asks, and the defeat in her voice is absolute. You stop hunting humans, Alucard states firmly. You explore alternative feeding, blood banks, willing donors, medical waste from hospitals. You get legitimate jobs. You integrate into society rather than preying on it, and you accept oversight from the magical community. Zatanna or Constantine checks in monthly, ensures you're complying. You become Gotham's vampires rather than vampires in Gotham. You find your place in the ecosystem instead of trying to dominate it. And if we can't adjust, if the hunger becomes too much, then you leave Gotham voluntarily or I come back, and we have a very different conversation. Alucard stands, looking at the assembled vampires, all watching now, listening, understanding that their entire existence just shifted. Batman doesn't want to exterminate you. Neither do I. We're not Van Helsing hunting all vampires as abominations. We're pragmatists who understand that supernatural beings exist and need accommodation. But that accommodation comes with rules. The young vampire who spoke before, the one who asked about alternatives, pulls himself upright. I'm tired of hiding, tired of killing people I don't hate just to survive. If there's another way, I'll take it. Traitor, Carmilla hisses. Survivor, the young vampire corrects. Marcus, by the way, since we're apparently doing introductions now. I was turned in 1985, have been with the court for 30 years, and I'm tired of pretending this lifestyle is sustainable. He looks at Alucard. You're serious about the medical blood? That would actually work. It sustained me for decades, Alucard confirms. Not as satisfying as fresh feeding, and you'll need to adapt to the different taste and nutritional profile. But it's survivable. Hell, in my world, some vampires even figured out synthetic blood alternatives. If this reality has similar medical technology, you might not even need human donors. Several other vampires are nodding now, the prospect of not being hunted criminals appealing despite their predator instincts. Carmilla sees her court fragmenting, her authority crumbling before her eyes. "You've destroyed everything I built," she accuses Alucard. "No," he corrects gently. "I've offered you an alternative to destruction. What you built was unsustainable the moment Batman made Gotham his territory. This isn't destruction, it's evolution. Adapt or die, choose." Batman's voice comes through the comm. "Status. Situation contained," Alucard reports. 11 vampires willing to explore alternative feeding methods. The matriarch is resistant but outvoted. Request Constantine or Zatanna for follow-up, establishing oversight protocols. "Constantine's en route," Batman confirms. "Wonder Woman is satisfied with your restraint. You passed the test." "Test?" Alucard questions. "You had authorization to kill if necessary," Batman explains. "You chose incapacitation instead. That shows judgment, control. The qualities I need in assets working Gotham's supernatural problems." Alucard feels something almost like pride at that assessment. He's proven himself not through killing but through restraint, through offering mercy when destruction was authorized. Constantine arrives 15 minutes later, emerging from the shadows with a cigarette already lit and an expression suggesting he's been through this exact scenario before. He surveys the cathedral, the damaged vampires, the cracked walls, Carmilla sitting sullenly on the altar steps, and sighs. "Right, so let me guess. Big bad vampire shows up, waves his dick around about being an apex predator. Alucard demonstrates that apex means different things in different contexts, and now everyone's suddenly interested in not dying horribly. That about sums it up. Eloquent as always, Constantine," Alucard observes dryly. "It's a gift." Constantine addresses the vampires collectively. "Here's how this works. I'm your caseworker now, lucky you. You're going to register with the magical community, provide locations of your havens, and submit to monthly check-ins. I'll connect you with suppliers for medical-grade blood, help you establish legitimate income sources because that shite's expensive, and ensure you're not backsliding into murder-for-dinner habits." "And if we refuse?" Carmilla asks, though her resistance sounds performative at this point. Then Alucard comes back, and next time he doesn't play gentle. Constantine takes a long drag. Or Batman sends in Zatanna, who can trap all of you in pocket dimensions individually. Or Wonder Woman just executes you efficiently. Or, my personal favorite, I call in Etrigan the Demon, who thinks vampires are crunchy and good with ketchup. You really want to explore your options, love, or you want to accept the incredibly generous second chance you're being offered. The fight drains from Carmilla completely. "We'll comply." "Smart girl." Constantine pulls out a smartphone, because even magical consultants have to adapt to modern technology. "Marcus, was it? You seem like you've got some sense. You're my point of contact. Here's my number. You call me if anyone in your little court starts thinking about going rogue, and I'll handle it before it becomes Batman's problem. Clear." Marcus takes the phone, looking at the number like it's a lifeline. "Crystal, thank you. Seriously, I thought we were all dead tonight." "You would have been if you'd killed Alucard," Constantine says bluntly. "But you didn't, so you get to keep existing. Conditional existence, but existence nonetheless." He looks at Alucard. "Good work, by the way. Efficient, restrained, didn't leave me a dozen corpses to dispose of. You're learning." "I've been restrained for 60 years, Alucard reminds him. "This isn't new behavior, it's old habits reasserting themselves." "Even better," Constantine approves. He addresses the vampires again. "Right, so, first order of business. All of you need to clear out of this gothic shithole and find proper housing. Can't have you squatting in abandoned churches. Attracts the wrong kind of attention from demon hunters and zealots. I know a landlord in the East End who doesn't ask questions if you pay in cash. Marcus, I'll send you details." As Constantine organizes the logistics of vampire rehabilitation, Alucard steps outside the cathedral into the cold night air. Wonder Woman is there, having observed everything from a nearby rooftop. She descends with casual grace, boots touching stone without sound. "You did well," she says simply. "You had power, authorization, and provocation. You still chose mercy over massacre." "I've had enough massacres for several lifetimes," Alucard replies. "These vampires are young, frightened, struggling to adapt to a world that's changed around them. Killing them would have been easy, helping them adapt." He trails off. "That actually means something." Diana smiles, and it's approving. "You understand, good. The League has enough warriors who solve problems with violence. We need more who understand that sometimes the harder path, teaching, guiding, reforming, is the more heroic one." She extends her hand formally. "Welcome to Gotham's Defenders, Alucard, unofficial member but member nonetheless." Alucard shakes her hand, feeling the genuine strength in her grip, not testing him, just honestly powerful. "Thank you, Princess. I'll try to be worthy of the trust." "See that you are," she says, but her tone is kind. "Batman will have more assignments. The supernatural underground in this city is extensive. Demon cults, rogue magic users, entities from other dimensions. You'll have plenty to keep you occupied." She takes flight, leaving Alucard alone on the cathedral steps. He activates the comm. "Batman, assignment complete. 12 vampires were contained and rehabilitated rather than eliminated. Constantine is handling oversight. No casualties." "Good work," Batman's response comes. "Return to the cave, we need to debrief. And there's another situation requiring your attention." "Already?" Alucard questions. "Gotham doesn't sleep," Batman replies, "and neither do its protectors." Alucard dissolves into mist, flowing through Gotham streets toward the Batcave's coordinates. Batman transmitted. He's been in this reality for less than 4 days, and already he's been examined by Death herself, assessed by the magical community, and field-tested by Batman and Wonder Woman. Already, he stopped killing when killing was authorized, choosing instead to guide and reform. It feels right. Purpose without mindless destruction. Power is utilized for protection rather than domination. This is what Integra gave him, what he's been missing since the dimensional breach pulled him from his reality. The Batcave is exactly as theatrical as he expected. Stalactites dripping water, computer systems that could probably run a small nation, display cases holding trophies from decades of crime fighting. Batman waits at the central computer, cowl pulled back to reveal Bruce Wayne's face for the first time. It's a gesture of trust, showing his civilian identity. "The vampire situation was a test," Bruce admits without preamble. "I needed to see how you'd respond when given the choice between efficiency and mercy." "And," Alucard prompts. "You chose correctly," Bruce states. "You demonstrated restraint, offered alternatives, and only used force for incapacitation. That's the difference between a weapon and a thinking being, between a monster and a defender." He pulls up files on the computer. "Which brings me to your next assignment. There's a demon cult operating in the Narrows, summoning something they shouldn't. Constantine is stretched thin dealing with your vampire friends, and Zatanna is handling a mystical crisis in Star City. I need you to investigate, assess the threat level, and contain if possible." "And if containment isn't possible?" Alucard asks. Bruce meets his eyes levelly. "Then you do what's necessary. Demons are different from vampires. They're not misguided beings who can be reformed. They're entities of pure malice that exist to harm. If you encounter an actual demon, not just misguided cultists, you have full authorization to destroy it." "Understood," Alucard confirms. "When?" "Now," Bruce replies. "Every hour they're active is another hour they're closer to completing whatever summoning they're attempting. I'll provide coordinates and everything we know about the cult. You report back when it's handled." Alucard nods, accepting the assignment. This is what he wanted: purpose, direction, targets worthy of his attention. He's no longer drifting between realities, no longer a weapon without a wielder. He's becoming what he was always meant to be, a monster who serves something greater than himself. As he prepares to depart, Alfred appears with a tea tray, because apparently, even in the Batcave, British propriety must be maintained. "Master Alucard, if I may, a word of advice from someone who's watched Master Bruce walk this path for many years. Please," Alucard invites. "The darkness you fight, the monsters you hunt, don't let them define you," Alfred says quietly. Master Bruce struggles with this constantly. The temptation to become what you oppose, to let the violence necessary for protection corrupt into violence for its own sake. You have more power than he does, which means you have more temptation. Don't succumb to it. "Wise words," Alucard acknowledges. "I'll try to remember them when the hunger and the power and the 5 centuries of violence all whisper that there's an easier way." "That's all any of us can do," Alfred replies. "Try, and keep trying even when we fail." Alucard leaves the Batcave through its vehicle entrance, emerging into Gotham's night. The Narrows district awaits, and with it, whatever demonic threat requires immediate attention. He dissolves into shadow, flowing through the city's darkness like water through cracks. Behind him in the cave, Bruce watches his departure on monitor screens. "What do you think, Alfred? Did we make the right call trusting him?" "I think, sir, that we made the only call available," Alfred replies, refilling Bruce's coffee. "An entity that powerful, seeking purpose and boundaries, better to direct him than to oppose him. And if he proves unworthy of that trust," he trails off meaningfully. "Then we activate the contingencies," Bruce finishes. "The magical bindings Zatanna prepared, the kryptonite-laced mystical restraints, the direct line to Superman if things go truly wrong." He turns from the monitors. "But I don't think we'll need them. He's not lying about wanting purpose. I can see it, that same need to serve something greater than himself that drove me to become Batman." "Then perhaps, sir, he'll be the ally you need," Alfred observes. "God, no, you could use one who understands the weight of carrying darkness in the service of light." In the Narrows, Alucard approaches the warehouse where Constantine's intelligence suggests the demon cult operates. He can sense it now, the wrongness in the air, the stench of sulfur and burnt flesh, the sound of chanting in languages that predate human civilization. They're summoning something, something significant. "Batman," he reports through the comm, "I'm at the location. Confirmed demonic activity. Multiple summoners, possibly 20 to 30 cultists. And something's coming through. I can feel reality thinning, a dimensional breach forming." "Can you stop it?" Bruce's voice is tense. Alucard's smile is sharp and hungry. "Oh yes, this is what I was made for." He walks toward the warehouse entrance, shadows gathering around him like eager servants, 2 million souls screaming for release. For the first time since arriving in the DC universe, Alucard allows himself to feel the full weight of his power, the absolute certainty that whatever's being summoned is about to meet something far worse than itself. "Let's see what passes for demons in this reality," he murmurs, "and let's teach them that some monsters serve the light." The warehouse doors explode inward as Alucard enters, coat billowing like blood-red wings, eyes burning crimson behind his glasses. The cultists turn, seeing death incarnate walking toward them, and their chanting falters. Good, Alucard thinks. Fear is appropriate, because tonight they're about to learn that the no-life king has claimed Gotham as his hunting ground. And in this city of endless darkness, even demons can find something to be afraid of. The warehouse interior is a portrait of systematic blasphemy. Pentagrams drawn in what Alucard's nose identifies as a mixture of human blood, animal viscera, and substances that shouldn't exist in baseline reality. The cultists, 32 by his count, wear robes that manage to be both expensive and filthy, the kind of dedication to aesthetics that suggests these aren't desperate poor seeking power, but bored rich playing with forces they don't understand. Candles arranged in geometric patterns cast shadows that move independently of their light sources. And at the center of the summoning circle, reality is bleeding. The dimensional breach is small, perhaps 3 feet in diameter, but growing with each syllable the lead cultist chants. Through it, Alucard can see something writhing. Too many limbs, too many eyes, geometry that makes his brain hurt despite 5 centuries of witnessing horrors. This is a demon, capital D, not some minor imp or possessing spirit. This is something from the deep hells, where reality's rules are suggestions rather than laws. "That's far enough, intruder," the lead cultist shouts, breaking his chanting to gesture dramatically at Alucard. He's mid-40s, well-groomed despite the blood-soaked robes, with the entitled confidence of someone who's never faced genuine consequences. "This warehouse is claimed by the circle of ascending darkness. Our master Valdrath comes, and with him, power beyond your..." Alucard shoots him. The casual barks once, custom .454 round punching through the cultist's shoulder and spinning him around. Not a killing shot, but definitely an attention-getting one. The cultist hits the ground screaming, and the chanting stops completely. "I have a few questions," Alucard announces conversationally, casual still smoking in his hand. "First, does anyone here actually understand what they're summoning? Because from where I'm standing, that looks like a Class 6 demonic entity from one of the deeper hells. The kind that doesn't grant wishes, it consumes realities. Second, is anyone here being coerced, mind-controlled, acting under duress? Because if so, now's the time to say something." Silence except for the lead cultist's whimpering. Then one of the younger members, college age, probably raises a trembling hand. I thought this was just like a goth club thing. Sebastian said it was performance art, that the rituals were symbolic and that rich people paid to watch." "Oh, for fuck's sake," another cultist interrupts, an older woman with cruel eyes. "Shut up, Brandon, we're so close. Valdrath promised us power, immortality, dominion over." Alucard shoots near her foot, the bullet sparking off concrete. "Let the boy finish." Brandon, the young cultist, is already backing away from the circle. "I didn't sign up for actual demon summoning. I thought it was fake. Theater. I'm out, I'm so out." "You can't leave," the older woman shrieks. "The ritual requires 33 participants. If we drop below that, the binding will fail and Valdrath will." She doesn't finish because the dimensional breach suddenly expands, the demon forcing its way through despite the incomplete ritual. Reality screams as it tears, and what emerges into the warehouse is everything wrong made manifest. Valdrath is 12 feet tall with anatomy that shifts between states, sometimes bipedal, sometimes insected, sometimes just a writhing mass of flesh and eyes and teeth. It smells like crematoriums and rotting flowers, and when it speaks, the voice comes from everywhere and nowhere. Incomplete SUMMONING, it thunders, the words bypassing ears and carving directly into brain tissue. BINDINGS insufficient, CONTROLS absent. You have freed me rather than COMMANDDME, foolish mortals. Your payment shall be. The demon stops, finally noticing Alucard. For a moment, there's silence as 2 supernatural entities assess each other. Then Valdrath laughs, a sound like grinding bones and screaming children. "Vampire, a dead thing PRETNDING 2 relevance. You dare oppose ME in MY moment of liberation." "Actually, yes," Alucard replies, holstering the casual and removing his glasses. His eyes glow crimson, and the shadows in the warehouse begin responding to his presence rather than the demons. "You see, I've recently accepted employment as Gotham's supernatural problem solver, and you, Valdrath, are very definitely a problem." "You are nothing," the demon dismisses. "A blood-sucking parasite. I am primordial, eternal, forged in the first HELLS when reality was young. You are an insect ANNOUNCING itself to a god." "Maybe," Alucard acknowledges, "but I'm an insect who's killed gods before, metaphorically speaking." He looks at the cultists, most of whom are frozen in terror. Everyone who wants to live, run now. The ones who actually understood what they were doing, stay. You've earned what's coming. Brandon and 6 others bolt immediately, trampling each other in their desperation to reach the exits. The remaining 25 stand their ground, some out of conviction, others paralyzed by fear. The older woman who screamed at Brandon raises her hands, magic crackling around her fingers, so an actual practitioner mixed in with the rich thrill seekers. Interesting. "Valdreth, we still offer ourselves," she shouts. "Take our souls, grant us the power you promised." "Accepted," Valdreth says, and 25 cultists scream as one. The demon draws their souls out like pulling threads from cloth, yanking the spiritual essence from their bodies in streams of iridescent energy. The bodies collapse, empty husks still technically alive but vegetative, and Valdreth grows. 15 feet tall now, incorporating their stolen life force, becoming more solid and more terrible. "Batman," Alucard says into his voice calm despite the horror unfolding. Situation escalated. Demon fully manifested, consumed 25 souls. Class 6 entity, possibly Class 7. I'm engaging. If I don't report back in 10 minutes, assume it went poorly and send Superman." "Acknowledged," Batman replies, tension clear in his voice. "Wonder Woman is en route, ETA 4 minutes. "That should be enough time," Alucard says, then addresses Valdreth. "Last chance, demon. Return to your hell voluntarily, and I'll consider not making your banishment particularly painful." Valdreth's laugh shakes the warehouse walls. "You think you can banish me? I am beyond your comprehension, vampire. I am." Alucard releases his first seal. Restriction level 3-2-1, releasing control art limitations to level 0. Situation A is recognized. The Cromwell approval is now in effect. Engage. Power explodes from him like a detonated star. This is what he kept restrained during the vampire encounter, what he holds back to appear remotely human-adjacent. 2 million souls scream their release, manifesting around him as a visible aura of death and power. His shadow expands, becoming a living thing. A lake of darkness from which emerge his familiars. First comes the Hellhound. Baskerville, 15 feet of black fur and red eyes and jaws that could swallow a car. Then the ghouls, dozens of them, manifestations of souls he's absorbed over centuries. Medieval knights in rusted armor, Nazi soldiers still wearing their uniforms, vampire elites he defeated and consumed. They pour from his shadow like an army being birthed, each one a fragment of his power given semi-autonomous form. Valdreth stops laughing. The first time the demon seems uncertain, recognizing that the insect it dismissed is something categorically different from expected. "What? What are you?" it demands. "I told you," Alucard says, and his voice carries the weight of 5 centuries and 2 million deaths. "I'm the no-life king, the vampire who conquered death itself. Are you primordial? I'm paradoxical. Are you eternal? I'm impossible. You're forged in the first hells." His smile is terrible and beautiful and utterly confident. "I've walked through every hell that matters, and emerged wearing them like a coat." He gestures and his familiar army surges forward. The ghouls swarm Valdreth, medieval swords and Nazi rifles and vampire claws all finding purchase in demonic flesh. The Hellhound latches onto one of the demon's limbs, if limb is even the right word for the writhing appendage, and tears with supernatural strength. Valdreth roars, lashing out, destroying a dozen familiars with sweeps of its talons, but Alucard just manifests more. Each destroyed familiar reforms, pulled from the inexhaustible well of absorbed souls. The demon is powerful, ancient, terrible, but Alucard is an army compressed into one body. It's attrition warfare, and attrition is a game he's played for centuries. "Impossible," Valdreth screams, incinerating 50 familiars with a gout of hellfire that melts concrete. "You cannot sustain this. Mortal VESSELS have LIMITS. "I'm not mortal," Alucard corrects, walking forward through the carnage. "Haven't been for 500 years. And limits," he laughs, and it's the sound of absolute certainty. "I stopped having meaningful limits around the time I absorbed Schrödinger and became quantum uncertainty given consciousness." He manifests the jackal, His other handgun, black chrome and 13mm rounds designed to kill supernatural entities. The bullets aren't normal ammunition. They're fragments of his own power, condensed and weaponized. He fires 6 times, each shot punching through Valdrath's malleable flesh and exploding with concussive force that would shatter tanks. Valdrath stumbles, wounded but not destroyed. The demon attempts to teleport to escape back through the dimensional breach to its home in hell, but Alucard is already there, having shadow-stepped between heartbeats to block the exit. He stands before the breach, arms spread wide, grinning like a madman. "No running," he says cheerfully. "You wanted liberation, freedom from your hell's constraints. Congratulations, you're free. Now deal with the consequences." The demon tries to overwhelm him with pure mass, slamming its bulk into Alucard's comparatively small frame. It's like trying to crush water. Alucard flows around the attack, becomes mist and shadow, reforms behind Valdrath and drives both hands into its back. Not a physical attack, a metaphysical one. He's not stabbing flesh, he's grabbing the demon's essence directly, the spiritual core that animates its terrible form. "Release me," Valdrath shrieks, truly afraid now. "Why would I do that?" Alucard questions, his tone genuinely curious. "You consumed 25 souls. You violated this reality's laws just by existing here. And more importantly, you made the mistake of threatening a city that's under my protection now." His grip tightens and Valdrath begins to fracture. "I'm going to do what I do best, demon. I'm going to consume you." "No, no, you cannot. I am primordial, I am eternal, I cannot be." The demon's protest cuts off as Alucard begins absorbing it. Not eating. That would be too simple. He's pulling Valdrath's essence into his own being, adding it to the 2 million souls already integrated into his existence. The demon fights, resists, and throws everything it has into preventing the absorption. It's not enough. Alucard is a black hole in vampiric form, an entity that has spent centuries consuming everything that threatens him and becoming stronger through assimilation. Valdrath is powerful, ancient, terrible, but Alucard is systematic, experienced, and functionally inexhaustible. The warehouse fills with light and shadow warring for dominance as demon and vampire struggle for supremacy. The dimensional breach flickers, unstable without the demon to anchor it. Valdrath's physical form begins dissolving, being pulled into Alucard piece by piece, scream by scream. "Mercy," the demon finally begs. "Please, I will return to my hell. I will never threaten this reality again. Just please don't." "No mercy for those who show none," Alucard replies, and there's no satisfaction in his voice, no joy in the domination, just grim necessity. "You consumed 25 souls without hesitation. You threatened this city. You made yourself my problem." He pulls harder and Valdrath screams as its essence tears free from its physical anchor. This is what happens to demons who come to Gotham now. Remember that in whatever afterlife, primordial demons experience. With a final sound like reality itself sighing in relief, Valdrath is gone, absorbed, integrated. His essence added to the vast army of souls that comprise Alucard's existence. The dimensional breach snaps shut, the warehouse's temperature returning to normal, and suddenly it's just Alucard standing alone amid the wreckage. He sways slightly, the absorption taking more out of him than he'd like to admit. Valdrath was powerful, far more powerful than any single entity he'd consumed in his original reality. Integrating that much foreign essence requires processing time, effort, and metaphysical digestion that leaves him temporarily vulnerable. "Batman," he reports, voice slightly strained. "Demon destroyed. Well, absorbed technically. 25 cultists suffered complete soul extraction. Bodies are alive but brain dead. 7 escaped and will need psychological counseling. The threat is contained." "Wonder Woman just arrived," Batman replies. "She's entering the warehouse now. Status on." "Functional but depleted," Alucard admits. "That demon was significant. I'll need a few hours to fully integrate its essence. Nothing immediately dangerous, just temporarily operating at reduced capacity." Wonder Woman lands in the warehouse's entrance. surveying the destruction with a warrior's assessment. She sees the scorch marks from hellfire, the cultist bodies arranged like broken dolls, and Alucard standing in the center looking simultaneously triumphant and exhausted. "You absorbed it," she observes, approaching carefully. "The demon, you didn't destroy it, you consumed it into yourself." "It's what I do," Alucard replies, managing a tired smile. 2,000,001 souls now. Valdrath gets to be my first DC Universe acquisition. He gestures at the brain-dead cultists. "Can anything be done for them?" Diana examines the nearest body, checking for vital signs and finding only autonomic functions. Breathing, heartbeat, but nothing resembling consciousness. Perhaps Zatanna might be able to attempt soul reconstruction if we move quickly, but they willingly offered themselves to a demon. There may not be enough left to reconstruct. "Try anyway," Alucard requests. "They were fools, but they deserve a chance." He looks at the dimensional breach's residue. How often does this happen? Demons summoning in major cities. "More often than we'd like," Diana admits. "There are always humans seeking power through pacts with darkness. Usually we catch them before the summoning completes. Tonight," she looks at him with newfound respect. "Tonight we had you. A demon that should have required the Justice League to contain, you handled solo." "Barely," Alucard corrects honestly. "If Valdrath had been much stronger, or if I'd been operating at partial capacity, the outcome might have differed. I'm powerful, Princess, but I'm not invincible. Tonight's victory was achieved through experience and desperation in equal measure." "That's called being a hero," Diana says gently. "Using what you have, fighting past your limits, achieving victory not through overwhelming power but through will and determination." She extends her hand to steady him as he sways again. "Come. Batman has medical facilities in the cave. You need to rest, process what you absorbed, and recover your strength." "I don't sleep," Alucard protests, but he accepts her support anyway. "Then you'll not sleep in comfort rather than standing in a warehouse full of corpses," Diana replies with the kind of no-nonsense firmness that suggests arguing is futile. "Batman's already sending cleanup crews. Constantine will handle the surviving cultists. Your job is done. Now accept the victory." They exit the warehouse as Gotham PD and SWAT teams arrive, Batman having already coordinated the official response. Captain Gordon, grizzled, experienced, and long past being shocked by Gotham's horrors, takes one look at the scene and sighs deeply. "Let me guess," he says to the air, knowing Batman is listening somewhere. "Demon cult, supernatural intervention, and I get to explain to my officers why 25 people are vegetables, and there's scorch marks from hellfire on every surface." "Officially, it's a gas leak and mass hysteria," Batman's voice comes through Gordon's comm. "The warehouse was being used for illegal chemical storage. The leak caused hallucinations. SWAT breached and secured the scene. The vegetative victims were likely exposed to concentrated toxins." "Right, because that's so much more believable than demon summoning," Gordon mutters. But he starts organizing his people according to the cover story anyway, because after 30 years in Gotham, he knows when to ask questions and when to just accept the weird. In the Batcave, Diana helps Alucard to one of the medical bays, actually designed for treating metahumans, with reinforced restraints and energy dampeners in case patients become combative. Alucard settles onto the examination table, removing his coat and hat for the first time since arriving in this reality. Without them, he looks almost human. Almost. The pallor is too perfect, the stillness too complete, the eyes too aware of centuries compressed into immortal existence. But there's vulnerability there too, the strain of absorbing a demon showing in the tightness around his eyes, the way his hands tremble slightly before he forces them still. "How does it feel?" Diana asks, genuine curiosity coloring her tone. "Absorbing a demon, adding it to your essence." Alucard considers how to explain. "Imagine eating something that fights back from inside your stomach, something that has opinions, memories, desires, all of which are utterly antithetical to your own existence. Valdrath's essence is screaming inside me right now, trying to assert dominance, trying to corrupt me into becoming more demon than vampire. But I've done this thousands of times. I know how to suppress, integrate, make the foreign essence part of myself rather than letting it remake me. Sounds exhausting. It is, Alucard admits, but necessary. If I'd simply destroyed Valdrath, it could have reformed in its home hell eventually. By absorbing it, I've permanently removed that threat. The demon is gone, reduced to component essence that I'll process and integrate. In a few hours, it'll just be another drop in the ocean of souls I carry. Bruce enters the cave, cowl pulled back, carrying medical supplies despite Alfred's presence, suggesting the butler would normally handle this. I watched the fight through Wonder Woman's comm. You took significant damage. I regenerated, Alucard replies, gesturing to his unmarred chest where Hellfire had carved wounds minutes ago. Physical damage isn't the concern, it's the metaphysical strain of absorption. Like I told Diana, integrating something that powerful requires time. Bruce pulls up a chair, sitting with the kind of casual ease that suggests this is a planned conversation rather than random medical monitoring. I need to understand your limitations. Tonight, you handled a Class 6 demon solo. That's league-level threat containment. But you're saying there are limits, things that would require backup. Absolutely, Alucard confirms. Valdrath was powerful but singular, one entity, limited intelligence, operating on pure aggression. If I faced multiple demons of similar power simultaneously, I'd struggle. If I encountered something truly ancient, an archdevil, a demon lord, a primordial evil from when this universe was forming, I might not win. He meets Bruce's eyes. And if I faced death herself, if she decided to enforce my mortality, I'd lose absolutely. She can collapse my quantum state, force me into actually dead status. I exist at her sufferance. Good to know, Bruce says, already cataloging the information. What about League members? Hypothetically, if you went rogue and we needed to stop you, what would work? You're asking me to provide weakness analysis on myself, Alucard observes with amusement. I'm asking you to be honest about your vulnerabilities so we can prepare appropriate contingencies, Bruce corrects. I have plans for every Justice League member, including myself. It's not paranoia, it's professionalism. If you're going to work with us, I need to know how to stop you. Alucard appreciates the directness. Fine. Physical force won't work unless it's God tier. Superman at full power could probably incapacitate me temporarily, but I'd regenerate. Wonder Woman's divine weapons could genuinely hurt me because they're magic-based. Your kryptonite won't affect me, different biology, but your magic-laced batarangs would. He continues methodically. The Flash could potentially phase me into the Speed Force, trapping me in temporal limbo. Green Lantern's constructs, powered by willpower, can bind me if they're strong enough and maintained consistently. Martian Manhunter's telepathy would be complicated. I have 2 million minds inside mine, which would make psychic assault difficult but not impossible. And magical containment, Bruce prompts. That's your best option, Alucard admits. Zatanna's binding circles, Constantine's demon traps, Dr. Fate's order magic, those can hold me. Not permanently, but long enough to figure out what went wrong and how to fix it. If I'm possessed, corrupted, or mind-controlled, magical containment lets you address the root cause without killing me. Diana, who's been listening quietly, speaks up. You're being remarkably forthcoming about your weaknesses. Because I want you to trust me, Alucard replies simply. And trust without contingencies is naivety. Batman doesn't do naive. It's why he survived this long. I respect that. I'd rather have him prepared to stop me if necessary than have him uncertain and potentially making mistakes out of desperation. Bruce nods in approval. You understand. Good. He stands, moving to the cave's main computer. I'm authorizing you for 3 more assignments this week, then we'll reassess. 2 demon cults that haven't activated yet but are being monitored, and a vampire nest in Bloodhaven that Nightwing requested assistance with. Think you can handle that schedule?" "Easily," Alucard confirms. "Though I should mention, every demon I absorb makes me slightly more powerful and slightly more complicated metaphysically. If I keep consuming major entities, eventually death or the Lords of Order might take issue with how much spiritual weight I'm accumulating." "Then we'll deal with that when it becomes relevant," Bruce says pragmatically. "For now, you're an asset who just proved extremely valuable. Rest, integrate your demon, and be ready for tomorrow." As Bruce returns to his eternal monitoring of Gotham, Diana sits beside Alucard's medical bay. "You did well tonight. Not just the combat, the restraint. You could have killed those cultists before the demon manifested. Instead, you gave them a chance to flee, let them make the choice. That shows character." "7 people lived because I hesitated," Alucard observes. 25 died because I wasn't fast enough. It's hard to call that a complete victory." "Welcome to heroism," Diana says wryly. "We save who we can, mourn who we lose, and keep fighting despite the impossible odds. You're learning." She stands, preparing to depart. "I'll be in Metropolis tomorrow if you need backup, but I think you'll be fine. You're stronger than you realize, Alucard, not just in power but in character." She leaves, and Alucard is alone in the Batcave with his thoughts and the demon screaming impotently inside his consciousness. He begins the meditation techniques Integra taught him decades ago, systematically processing Valdrath's essence, breaking down the demon's identity, and redistributing its power through his existing soul structure. It's slow, exhausting work. Each fragment of demon has to be carefully integrated, its malevolence neutralized, its power absorbed without allowing its corruption to spread. Alucard has done this thousands of times with vampire souls, but demon essence is categorically different, actively hostile, fighting integration at every level. Hours pass. The Batcave's ambient sounds, dripping water, computer cooling fans, distant rumble of Gotham above, become a meditation rhythm. Slowly, methodically, Alucard processes the demon. Valdrath's screaming fades to whispers, then silence. The power remains, adding to Alucard's considerable reserves, but the entity itself is gone, dissolved, made into component parts that strengthen the whole without threatening its integrity. By dawn, it's done. Alucard opens his eyes, feeling simultaneously exhausted and energized. He's absorbed a DC Universe demon, proven his worth to Batman and Wonder Woman, and successfully integrated power that should have been incompatible with his vampiric existence. 2,000,001, he says to the empty cave, and the journey's just beginning. Alfred appears with tea, because apparently the butler has supernatural awareness of when people need beverages, and settles into a nearby chair. "You're adapting well, Master Alucard, to this universe, to your role, to the weight of responsibility." "I had good teachers," Alucard replies, accepting the tea. "Integra taught me that power without purpose is just sophisticated destruction. Batman's teaching me the same lesson in different context. That being the monster isn't enough. You have to be the monster that serves something greater." "Precisely," Alfred agrees. "Master Bruce struggles with that balance daily. Too much monster and you become the enemy. Too little and you can't protect what matters. You seem to understand that intuitively." "I've had 500 years to learn," Alucard reminds him. "And I've been every variation of monster imaginable. The mindless killer, the proud tyrant, the enslaved weapon. This," he gestures vaguely at the Batcave, at Gotham Beyond, at the entire context of choosing heroism, "this is new. Being the monster by choice, for purposes I genuinely believe in rather than purposes forced upon me." "Then choose well," Alfred advises, "because Gotham has a way of testing everyone who tries to protect it. The city will push you, corrupt you if it can, drag you down to its level. Resist that. Maintain your humanity, or whatever equivalent vampires have, and you'll do fine." Alucard finishes his tea as the sun rises over Gotham, light filtering into the cave through carefully designed ventilation shafts. He feels it, the daylight that would have been debilitating in his younger years. Now it's just uncomfortable, a reminder that despite everything, he's still a creature of darkness. But darkness, he's learning, can serve the light, monsters can protect, and 500-year-old vampires can find purpose in a universe of gods and heroes. "Alfred," he says quietly, "thank you. For the tea, for the advice, for treating me like I'm worthy of both." "You're welcome, Master Alucard," Alfred replies with genuine warmth. "Now rest. Tomorrow brings new challenges, and Gotham never stops producing problems that need solving." Alucard settles back into the medical bay, not sleeping, but entering a meditative state that serves similar purposes. Around him, the Batcave continues its eternal vigil, monitoring a city that never rests, protecting people who don't know they're being protected. And in that cave, in that moment, Alucard finally feels something he hasn't experienced since being ripped from his reality: belonging. He's home. 3 weeks into his tenure as Gotham's supernatural enforcer, Alucard has established a routine that would seem mundane if not for the underlying context of being an immortal vampire hunting demons and rogue magic users. He's cleared 4 demon cults, rehabilitated 2 more vampire covens, and helped Constantine exorcise a possessed museum curator who'd been channeling ancient Sumerian death gods through Mesopotamian artifacts. The magical community has accepted him with cautious approval. Batman trusts him enough to operate semi-independently, and Zatanna only checks her tracking crystal twice a day instead of hourly. It's almost comfortable, which means, by Gotham's immutable laws, something is about to go catastrophically wrong. The wrongness starts subtly, a feeling Alucard can't quite articulate, like reality itself is holding its breath. He's in old Gotham again, investigating reports of spectral activity near the docks when he senses it. A presence, vast, malevolent, observing him with intelligence that makes Valdreth look like a particularly stupid dog. "Batman," he says into his calm, keeping his voice level despite growing unease. "I'm detecting something. Not demon, not vampire, not anything I've encountered in this reality. Something else, something watching." "Define something," Batman replies, already pulling up Alucard's location on his systems. "If I could define it, I wouldn't be concerned," Alucard replies. He's standing on a dock, fog rolling in from the harbor, and every one of his supernatural senses is screaming that he's being hunted by something that considers him prey. It feels like the fog explodes with motion. Not wind, not natural movement, but something tearing through reality itself. A figure emerges, and Alucard's first coherent thought is that this is what nightmares would look like if nightmares could take physical form and hunt. It's humanoid in the loosest sense, tall, wrapped in what might be bandages or might be its own deteriorating flesh, with eyes that glow a sickly yellow-green. But it's the aura that truly terrifies. This thing radiates wrongness, the kind of fundamental corruption that suggests it shouldn't exist in any healthy reality. It's a violation given form, and it's looking at Alucard with what might be hunger or might be recognition. "Anomaly," it says, voice like stones grinding in a tomb. "Dimensional breach remnant. You do not belong here. You are infection in reality's fabric." "I've been called worse," Alucard replies, but his hand is already on the jackal. "What are you?" "I am correction," the entity states. "I am the Dark Multiverse's immune response. You entered this reality through my domain, vampire. You carry the taint of nightmare realities, of worlds that should not be. I am sent to excise you." And suddenly everything makes terrible sense. Constantine warned him that coming through the Dark Multiverse could have consequences, that nightmare entities might notice the door he'd opened. This is the consequence. A hunter sent from the realm of failed realities to eliminate the anomaly that doesn't belong. "Batman," Alucard says urgently, "I need immediate backup. This isn't a demon, it's something from the Dark Multiverse. Something is specifically hunting me." "League is scrambling," Batman replies, and Alucard can hear the controlled tension in his voice. Wonder Woman ETA 5 minutes, Superman en route from Metropolis, Flash coming from Central City. Can you last 5 minutes? I'll try, Alucard says, and then the Dark Multiverse entity attacks. It's fast, impossibly fast. Not speedster fast, but reality warping fast, closing the distance in ways that ignore physics. Alucard barely manages to shadow step away, reforming 20 feet distant, but the entity is already there, anticipating his movement. A fist that feels like condensed entropy crashes into his chest, and Alucard goes flying through a shipping container, through another, cratering into the dock's concrete foundation. He regenerates instantly, flesh knitting back together, but something's wrong. The wound isn't healing cleanly. There's corruption at the edges, dark multiverse taint trying to invade his cellular structure. This thing doesn't just damage, it corrupts, transforms, drags things into the nightmare reality it represents. You're going to have to do better than that, Alucard says, releasing his first restriction seal. His familiar army manifests, hellhound and ghouls pouring from his shadow to swarm the entity. They last 3 seconds. The dark multiverse hunter moves through them like they're tissue paper, its very touch causing them to dissolve into screaming shadows that fade without regenerating. Constructs cannot harm me, it states flatly. I am an antithesis to stable existence. Your power is BORROWED reality, mine is fundamental corruption. You cannot win. Alucard fires the jackal, all 13 rounds in rapid succession. Each bullet hits, each one exploding with power that would destroy buildings. The entity staggers, actually wounded, but the wounds seal immediately with that same wrong-colored energy. It's regenerating faster than he is, and worse, it's adapting, learning his patterns, adjusting its tactics with each exchange. He needs to buy time. 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes until the League arrives with power that might actually threaten this thing. He dissolves into mist, becoming intangible, and the entity's next strike passes through him harmlessly. Clever, it acknowledges, but futile. I am patient. I will wait until you reform, and then I will drag you back to the dark multiverse where you belong. That's when Alucard realizes the true danger. This thing isn't trying to kill him, it's trying to capture him, to drag him back through dimensional barriers into the nightmare realm he accidentally traversed. And if it succeeds, he'll be trapped in realities where every bad decision was made, where every hero failed, where darkness won and consumes itself eternally. Not happening, he says, reforming and immediately shadow-stepping again. He can't fight this thing directly. It's too strong, too fundamentally antithetical to his existence. But he can run, he can dodge, he can buy the 5 minutes Batman needs to bring cavalry. The entity pursues with relentless efficiency, and Alucard leads it on a chase through the docks. He shadow steps from container to container, becomes mist to avoid attacks, and manifests just long enough to fire shots that slow but don't stop his pursuer. Every second feels like an hour. Every dodge is closer than the last. 3 minutes in, the entity adapts completely. It anticipates his shadow steps, appearing where he's going to be rather than where he is. A hand that feels like frozen entropy wraps around his throat, lifting him off the ground with strength that cracks concrete beneath its feet. Time EXPRES anomaly, it says. And Alucard feels reality beginning to tear around them. The dark multiverse is reaching through, trying to reclaim him, drag him back into nightmare. You will return to corruption. You will be unmade. You will. Lightning splits the sky. Not natural lightning, divine lightning, charged with power that predates human civilization. Wonder Woman arrives like a meteor, descending at terminal velocity with the lasso of truth already spinning. She wraps it around the dark multiverse entity's arm, and the contact produces a sound like reality screaming. Amazon, the entity hisses, actually concerned now. Daughter of Gods, you interfere in correction. I'm preventing an execution, Diana corrects, pulling the lasso tight. The divine magic conflicts with the entity's corruption, creating bursts of light and shadow that hurt to look at directly. Release him, now. The entity doesn't comply, so Diana drives her sword, forged by Hephaestus himself, blessed by the Olympian pantheon, into its shoulder. The blade bites deep, and this time the entity screams. Divine magic is its weakness, apparently. The fundamental order of the gods versus the fundamental chaos of the Dark Multiverse. It releases Alucard, who collapses to the dock, gasping despite not needing to breathe. The corruption in his chest wound is spreading, black veins crawling under his skin, and he can feel it trying to transform him into something wrong. He forces his regeneration into overdrive, burning through stored power to purge the Dark Multiverse taint before it takes root. Superman arrives next, cape billowing as he touches down beside Wonder Woman. He takes one look at the entity, at the wrongness it represents, at the way reality itself seems to flinch from its presence, and his expression hardens with determination. "What is that thing?" he asks. "Dark Multiverse Hunter," Alucard manages, still purging corruption. "Sent to reclaim me, to drag me back to nightmare realities because I came through their domain to reach this one." "Then it's not leaving with you," Superman states flatly, and there's absolute conviction in his voice. This is Superman at his most fundamental, the protector who doesn't accept no as an answer. "Batman, status on Flash and backup." "Flash arriving now," Batman's voice comes through all their comms. "Dr. Fate en route, ETA 2 minutes. Constantine is trying to establish magical barriers to prevent dimensional breaching." The Flash materializes in a blur of red and yellow lightning, already moving as he arrives. He circles the Dark Multiverse entity at incredible speed, creating a vortex of wind and speed force energy that briefly contains it. "Okay, that is extremely creepy. What's the plan?" "Divine weapons can hurt it," Diana reports, pressing her advantage with sword and shield. "Magic affects it. Physical force is less effective." "Then we contain, not destroy," Superman decides. He moves with Kryptonian speed, heat vision lancing out to supplement Diana's assault. The entity blocks with arms that should melt under solar temperature beams, but instead just char slightly. It's durable, more durable than most beings I've fought. "You delay inevitable," the entity states, standing against Superman and Wonder Woman simultaneously. "Anomaly will be reclaimed. If not today, then tomorrow. If not this week, then next month. The Dark Multiverse is patient. We are Legion. Send one hunter back and 3 more will come." "Then we'll fight 3 more," Diana replies, and there's Amazon steel in her voice. "This vampire is under our protection, under Justice League protection. You want him, you go through us." The entity actually seems to consider this, processing the tactical reality. It's powerful, but it's facing 2 of the League's strongest members, with more backup arriving. The cost-benefit analysis apparently doesn't favor continued engagement. "Reprieve, then," it says, beginning to fade back into corrupted shadows. But mark my words, HEROES of this reality, he is infection. He CARRIES Dark Multiverse taint. Eventually he will corrupt. Eventually he will become what he fears. And when that happens, we will be waiting. Dr. Fate arrives in golden radiance just as the entity vanishes, powerful magic scanning the area and finding only residual corruption. The Lord of Order's voice resonates with cosmic authority. The hunter has withdrawn but not departed. It watches from adjacent dimensions, waiting for opportunity. Constantine appears moments later through a portal that smells of brimstone and bad decisions, already smoking and looking irritated. Brilliant, just brilliant. Dark Multiverse entities are hunting our vampire. This is exactly the kind of escalation I was hoping to avoid. He looks at Alucard, who's finally purged the corruption and is regenerating normally. "You all right, mate?" "Functional," Alucard replies, accepting Superman's offered hand to stand. "That thing was specifically designed to counter me, to exploit my dimensional origins and drag me back. Because you came through the Dark Multiverse, Fate states, confirming what everyone already suspected. That realm is toxic, infectious. Entities from it carry taint even when uncorrupted. You are marked Alucard. The Dark Multiverse considers you its property, and it will continue attempting reclamation. So what do we do? Superman asks, ever pragmatic. We can't have Dark Multiverse hunters manifesting in Gotham whenever they feel like dragging someone away. Constantine takes a long drag on his cigarette, thinking, we need to ritualistically cleanse him. Purge the Dark Multiverse taint so thoroughly that those nightmare realities can't track him anymore. It's possible, difficult, expensive in terms of mystical components, and probably painful, but possible. Do it, Alucard says immediately. Whatever it takes. I won't be prey for nightmare realities, and I won't endanger this city by being a beacon for Dark Multiverse incursions. There's another problem, Fate adds, golden helmet gleaming in the dawn light. The taint isn't just tracking beacon, it's corruption vector. The longer you carry it, the more it will influence you. Subtle at first. You'll make slightly darker choices, justify slightly more violence, feel the temptation toward monstrosity more acutely. The Dark Multiverse doesn't just hunt anomalies, it tries to corrupt them first, make them into agents of darkness. Then it reclaims them as willing participants rather than captives. The implications hit Alucard like physical blow. Every choice he's made since arriving, the restraint with vampires, the mercy with cultists, the discipline in combat, all of it could be compromised by corruption he doesn't even know he's carrying. He could become the monster he's been trying not to be, and never realize it was external influence rather than his own nature. How long do I have? He asks quietly. Hard to say, Constantine admits. Could be months. Could be weeks. Depends on your willpower, your moral foundation, how thoroughly you resist temptation. Your strong will that buys time. But eventually, everyone breaks under Dark Multiverse corruption. Everyone. Then we cleanse him now, Superman states firmly. Tonight, whatever you need, Constantine, you'll have it. League resources, magical assistance, anything. I'll need Zatanna, Dr. Fate's cooperation, probably a favor from one of the Endless. Death might be willing to help, given her previous interest in our vampire. Constantine starts cataloging requirements. Sacred ground, items of power to anchor the ritual, and Alucard's willing participation, because this is going to hurt like nothing he's experienced. I'll endure it, Alucard says. I've survived 500 years of horrors. I can survive one more. Diana rests a hand on his shoulder, the gesture surprisingly gentle from the warrior princess. You won't face it alone. We'll be there, supporting the ritual, ensuring you survive the process. You're one of us now, Alucard. We protect our own. The phrase, one of us, resonates deeper than it should. Alucard has been a monster, a weapon, a servant. But one of us suggests peer, colleague, ally. It suggests the Justice League has accepted him not as a tool but as a team member. The emotional weight of that acceptance is unexpectedly overwhelming. Thank you, he manages, and means it absolutely. Batman's voice cuts through the moment with characteristic pragmatism. Batcave is a secure location for the ritual. Mystical defenses already in place, medical facilities if something goes wrong, and containment options if the Dark Multiverse tries to interfere. Move there now, begin preparations. Always the romantic, Constantine mutters, but he's already opening a portal. Right, everyone through. We've got about 6 hours to gather components and prepare. And Alucard, don't use your powers more than necessary between now and the ritual. Every time you tap into your abilities, you risk spreading the corruption deeper. They portal to the Batcave, emerging in its vast space to find Batman already coordinating. He's contacted Zatanna, who's arranging immediate travel from Star City. Dr. Fate is establishing mystical boundaries around the cave. Alfred is preparing medical supplies with the calm efficiency of someone who's seen impossible things become routine. Alucard sits on one of the medical bay tables, feeling the dark multiverse taint squirming in his essence now that he knows to look for it. It's subtle, insidious, whispering temptations that sound like his own thoughts. Why show mercy to vampires when you could dominate them? Why serve Batman when you could rule Gotham? Why resist your nature when embracing it would be so much easier? It's talking to you, Diana observes, sitting beside him. The corruption. I can see it in your eyes, your hearing whispers. How did you know? Alucard asks. Because I've fought dark multiverse entities before, she replies. During the Metal Crisis, when Nightmare Batman invaded our reality, I've heard those whispers, felt that corruption trying to take root. The key is recognizing their external, not your genuine desires. What if they're both? Alucard questions. What if the corruption is just amplifying darkness that was already there? I've been a monster, Diana, for centuries. What if the dark multiverse is just helping me remember what I really am? Then you fight it, she says firmly. You choose moment by moment to be better than your worst impulses. That's what heroism is, not the absence of darkness, but the choice to serve light despite the darkness within. Clark could be a god tyrant, he has the power. Bruce could be a killer, he has the justification. I could conquer, I have the strength. We choose differently because choice is what defines us. Her words anchor him, pushing back against the whispers. He focuses on that truth, that who he is isn't determined by power or corruption or ancient vampire nature, but by the choices he makes every moment of every night. Zatanna arrives in a flash of backward-spoken teleportation, already carrying bags of mystical components. Constantine briefed me en route. We're doing a full purification ritual, dark multiverse taint removal, dimensional signature cleansing, and spiritual reinforcement to prevent reinfection. She starts unpacking items that glow with inherent power. This is going to be intense, Alucard. The taint won't want to leave, and removing it means essentially burning away parts of your essence that it's infected. Will I lose power? He asks, pragmatic concern overriding pride. Some, probably, she admits. The corruption has woven itself into your dimensional nature, your Schrödinger state, your quantum existence. Purging it completely might permanently damage your omnipresence capabilities. You'll still be incredibly powerful, just slightly less broken physics powerful. Acceptable trade, Alucard decides. Better slightly weaker and free than full power and slowly corrupting into a dark multiverse agent. Constantine finishes chalking a massive ritual circle in the cave's central space, incorporating symbols from a dozen different magical traditions. Right, here's how this works. Alucard in the center, Dr. Fate maintaining order stability, Zatanna and I managing the actual purification, Superman and Wonder Woman as anchors in case he needs physical restraint if the corruption fights back through him. Flash on standby to speed scatter any dark multiverse entities that try to interfere, and Batman monitoring everything because he's Batman. Sounds organized, Alucard observes, moving to the circle's center. Sounds like organized chaos, but it's the best we can do on short notice, Constantine corrects. He lights candles arranged around the circle, not normal candles but mystical ones that burn with colored flames. Last chance to back out, mate. Once we start, stopping midway could leave you worse off than we found you. I've trusted worse people with less reason, Alucard replies, settling into a meditative posture. Begin when ready. Zatanna and Constantine exchange glances, then begin chanting in synchronized backwards, Latin that makes reality ripple with power. Dr. Fate raises his staff, golden energy pouring from it to reinforce the circle's boundaries. The ritual begins. At first, it's just uncomfortable, a sensation like ants crawling under his skin, like his essence is being examined by forces beyond comprehension. Then the pain starts. Not physical pain, though his body translates it that way. Spiritual pain, metaphysical agony as the ritual reaches into the deepest parts of his being and starts pulling out corruption that's taken root there. Alucard screams. He can't help it. This is worse than being killed, worse than regenerating from destruction, worse than any torture he's endured in 5 centuries. The ritual is burning away parts of himself, cauterizing spiritual wounds, purging infection that's wrapped around his very existence. The Dark Multiverse fights back. Through Alucard's mouth come voices that aren't his, nightmare versions of himself from realities where he won completely, became an absolute tyrant, destroyed everything he touched. They scream defiance, promising power, offering easy paths if he just stops resisting. "Hold him!" Zatanna shouts as Alucard's body convulses, his vampiric nature trying to shut down the ritual by any means necessary. Superman and Wonder Woman move in, gripping his shoulders with precisely calibrated strength, enough to restrain, not enough to injure. "It's okay," Diana says, voice cutting through the chaos. "You're not alone, we're here, keep fighting." Hours pass in subjective eternities. The ritual grinds on, relentless and thorough, burning away every trace of Dark Multiverse taint it can find. Alucard feels parts of himself dying, his omnipresence fragments, his quantum uncertainty becomes less uncertain, and his reality-bending nature becomes slightly more bound to baseline physics. He's losing power, losing capabilities he's relied on for years, but he's also becoming clean, pure, free. As dawn breaks over Gotham, the ritual finally completes. The circle's light fades, the chanting stops, and Alucard collapses forward, caught by Superman before he hits stone. He's alive, or whatever passes for alive in his case, but fundamentally changed. "Status," Batman demands immediately. Zatanna checks mystical scanners, comparing readings. Taint removed, 98% cleansed. There might be trace elements too deep to excise without killing him, but they're inert, harmless. He's clean enough that Dark Multiverse can't track him anymore. "And his power?" Constantine asks, lighting a cigarette with shaking hands. "That ritual took it out of everyone involved." "Reduced but still formidable," Dr. Fate assesses, golden eyes scanning Alucard. "His Schrödinger state is damaged. He can no longer exist in true omnipresence. His reality-warping capabilities are diminished by approximately 30%. But his core vampiric abilities, his regeneration, his familiar army, his soul absorption all intact. He is weaker than he was, but still among the more powerful entities on this planet." Alucard opens his eyes, looking at the faces surrounding him, heroes who just spent hours helping purify a vampire they've known for weeks, who sacrificed time and energy and resources to save him from corruption, who treated him like he mattered, like he was worth the effort. "Thank you," he says, and his voice cracks with emotion he hasn't felt in decades. "All of you. You saved me from becoming what I feared most." "That's what we do," Superman says simply, helping him sit up. "We save people, even people who think they're beyond saving." Constantine extinguishes his cigarette. "Right, so let's be clear about something. You're still carrying 2 million souls, you're still powerful enough to level buildings, and you're still an ethical nightmare from a bureaucratic perspective. But you're our ethical nightmare now, and the League takes care of its own. That clear?" "Crystal," Alucard manages a weak smile. "Good," Batman says, and there might be approval in his tone. "Now rest, recover. When you're functional again, we have work, but you've earned respite." As the heroes disperse to their own responsibilities, Diana remains. She sits beside Alucard in comfortable silence, understanding that sometimes presence is more valuable than words. "I lost power," Alucard finally says. 30% reduction. Abilities I've relied on for years, gone or diminished. I'm weaker than I was." "You're freer than you were," Diana corrects. "And power without freedom is just elaborate imprisonment. You made the right choice. The heroic choice. Now you get to discover who you are without corruption, without Dark Multiverse whispers. Discover who Alucard truly is when he's choosing his own path completely." "What if I don't like what I find?" he asks quietly. "Then you change," Diana says simply. "That's the beauty of free will, of genuine choice. You're not locked into being what you were or what you feared becoming. You can choose moment by moment to be better, to be the hero you're capable of being." Alucard sits with that truth as the Batcave returns to its normal rhythms. He's weaker than he was, cleaner than he's been, and freer than he's felt since Integra died in his original reality. The road ahead is uncertain, but for the first time, it's genuinely his road to walk. "One question," he says to Diana before she leaves. "Why did you all do this? Invest so much effort in saving one vampire?" From a tactical perspective, letting the Dark Multiverse reclaim me would have eliminated a potential threat. Diana's answer is immediate and absolute. Because we don't sacrifice people, ever. That's the line that separates heroes from everyone else. We fight for everyone, save everyone we can, and we don't do cost-benefit analysis on souls. You needed help. We provided it. That's what the Justice League means. She leaves, and Alucard is alone with his thoughts and his diminished but purified power. He's no longer the absolute monster he was, no longer the reality-breaking anomaly. He's just Alucard, vampire, weapon, ally, and now, genuinely hero. "Hope shines brightest in the darkest night," he murmurs, Alfred's earlier words echoing in his memory. "Perhaps it's time I learned to be part of that light, rather than just the darkness that protects it." In the shadows of the Batcave, wounded and weakened but free, Alucard begins the hardest journey of his 500-year existence, becoming someone worthy of the trust these heroes placed in him. 6 months after his purification, Alucard has become a fixture in Gotham's supernatural ecosystem. Not quite Justice League, not quite solo vigilante, but something uniquely his own. He operates from a restored church in Old Gotham that Constantine helped him acquire, a sanctuary that serves as both his base of operations and a symbol of his transformation from pure monster to something approaching redemption. The locals call him the Crimson Shadow, the Blood Knight, or simply the Vampire, depending on whether they're grateful for his protection or terrified by his existence. Tonight finds him standing on the church's bell tower, coat billowing in Gotham's perpetual wind, surveying the city that's become his territory. His powers, while diminished from their peak, remain formidable enough to handle most supernatural threats. He's learned to compensate for the loss of true omnipresence with better tactics, to substitute raw power with strategic thinking. Batman approves. He's become less a blunt instrument and more a precision tool. The calm in his ear crackles. "Alucard, this is Nightwing. I've got a situation in Bloodhaven that could use your expertise. Multiple victims, completely drained of blood, but the pattern's wrong for normal vampire activity. You available?" Dick Grayson, the first Robin, now operating independently in the neighboring city. They've worked together 3 times since Alucard's purification, developing a professional respect and something approaching friendship. Dick treats him like any other cape rather than a supernatural anomaly, which Alucard appreciates more than he'd admit. "I'm en route," Alucard replies, dissolving into shadow and flowing through Gotham streets toward Bloodhaven. Even with diminished powers, shadow travel remains efficient within a limited range. He manifests on a rooftop near Nightwing's location, reforming in the physical realm with practiced ease. Nightwing stands near a crime scene that GCPD hasn't reached yet, an apartment building in Bloodhaven's industrial district, emergency lights casting blue strobes across his costume. "Thanks for coming." "I wouldn't have called except this is weird even for us." "Weird how?" Alucard asks, approaching the scene. 5 victims, all completely exsanguinated, but there are no bite marks, no entry wounds at all. It's like something pulled the blood out through their pores. Dick leads him into the building, past the horrified building manager who's been instructed to keep everyone out. And there's this. The apartment is a charnel house. 5 bodies arranged in a pentagram pattern, skin pale and deflated like balloons after air release, but Dick is right, no visible wounds. The blood is simply gone, extracted by a method Alucard's 5 centuries of experience can't immediately identify. He crouches beside the nearest victim, examining them with supernatural senses. There's magic residue, but not demonic summoning or vampiric feeding. This is something else. Something that uses blood as fuel or a component but isn't vampire in nature. "Blood magic," he concludes, straightening, "but not conventional. This is Old, pre-Christian old. Someone's performing rituals that predate most modern magical traditions. He looks at Nightwing. Has Constantine seen this? He's handling a crisis in London. Some demon prince trying to cross over through Buckingham Palace. Zatanna's with the League, dealing with apocalypse scout ships near Jupiter. You're my supernatural expert tonight. Dick studies the bodies with a detective's eye, seeing patterns Alucard might miss. What would old blood magic be used for? Power accumulation, usually, Alucard replies, examining the magical residue more carefully. Blood is life, life is power. A practitioner could drain victims to fuel larger workings, immortality spells, transformation rituals, summoning entities that require massive energy investment. He pauses, sensing something familiar about the magical signature. This feels almost vampiric but filtered through human magical practice. Like someone's trying to replicate vampire feeding through ritualism. Could someone be trying to become a vampire? Nightwing asks. Possible but inefficient, Alucard says. Becoming a vampire requires being turned by an existing vampire, not ritual magic. Unless, he trails off, realization hitting. Unless they're trying to become something better than a vampire. Something that has vampiric power without vampiric weaknesses. A blood mage with centuries of accumulated life force. That sounds bad, Dick observes. That sounds apocalyptic, Alucard corrects. If someone's figured out how to steal life force through blood magic without needing physical contact, they could scale up, drain hundreds, thousands, become a godlike entity fueled by stolen vitality. He stands, already tracking the magical signature. I can follow the residue. Whoever did this left a trail, intentionally or not. But I'll need backup. If this practitioner has already drained 5 people, they're too powerful for me to take solo. I'm your backup, Nightwing says immediately. You're human, Alucard points out gently. If this escalates to magical combat, you'll be vulnerable. I've fought alongside Batman against magical threats, Dick counters. I know my limitations, but I also know when to push past them. Besides, you're not going alone. That's not how we work. The absolute confidence in his voice reminds Alucard of Integra, that same refusal to let power differential dictate partnerships. He nods in acceptance. Stay behind me if it goes supernatural. Your acrobatics won't help against blood magic. They follow the trail through Bloodhaven's industrial sector, magical residue leading them toward the docks. The signature grows stronger as they approach an abandoned warehouse. Because of course it's an abandoned warehouse. Villains have no imagination about layers, and Alucard senses the practitioner inside. Single presence, but the power radiating from them suggests they've drained far more than 5 people. How many victims? Nightwing asks, reading Alucard's expression. Dozens at minimum, maybe hundreds over time. Alucard studies the warehouse, nodding defensive wards etched into the walls with what's probably more blood. This isn't recent activity. This practitioner has been operating for months, possibly years. Building power slowly, staying under the radar until tonight's victims broke their pattern. Why break the pattern now? Dick questions. Because they're ready, Alucard realizes grimly. Tonight's victims weren't food, they were final components. Whatever ritual they're preparing, it's reaching completion. He activates his comm. Batman, I need immediate League backup at Bloodhaven docks. Hostile blood mage, potentially centuries of accumulated power, about to complete a major working. League stretched thin with the apocalypse situation, Batman responds. Can you contain until backup arrives? Alucard looks at the warehouse, calculating odds. I can try, but if this goes wrong. Then you retreat, Batman states firmly. No heroic last stands. You fall back, regroup, and wait for proper support. Clear. Clear, Alucard confirms, though they both know he won't retreat if innocent lives are at stake. That's not who he's become during 6 months of choosing heroism. He and Nightwing approach the warehouse carefully, noting the complete absence of guards or security. The practitioner is either supremely confident or supremely foolish. Given the power signature, probably the former. The warehouse interior is exactly what Alucard expected: ritual circles, stolen blood stored in ceremonial vessels, arcane symbols covering every surface. And at the center, standing in a complex array that pulses with stolen life force, is a woman. She's middle-aged, unremarkable in appearance except for eyes that glow with unnatural vitality. She wears practical clothes rather than robes, looking more like an accountant than a blood mage. But the power radiating from her is undeniable. She's absorbed so much life force that she's transcended normal human limitations. "The vampire," she greets without surprise. "I was wondering when Gotham's supernatural community would notice my work. 5 victims in one night was admittedly sloppy, but I'm on a deadline." She gestures to the ritual array. 3 hours until the conjunction. 3 hours until I ascend beyond mortality, beyond limitation, beyond death itself. "You're trying to become immortal," Alucard observes, "through accumulating stolen life force until you've gathered enough to permanently sustain yourself. Immortal, powerful, and free from the weaknesses that plague vampires like you," she confirms. "No sunlight vulnerability, no silver allergy, no need to feed constantly. Just pure, self-sustaining existence fueled by the centuries of life I've accumulated. I'll be perfect." "You'll be a monster," Nightwing states flatly. "You've killed hundreds of people." "I've consumed hundreds of lives that would have been wasted anyway," she corrects. "Homeless, addicts, people society already discarded. I gave their meaningless existences purpose, fueling something greater. My ascension will justify every sacrifice." Alucard has heard this rhetoric before, in different contexts, from different monsters. The rationalization that some lives matter less, that grand purposes justify individual tragedies, and that becoming powerful enough excuses the path to power. He's heard it from Nazis, from vampire tyrants, from himself in his darkest moments centuries ago. "No," he says simply, "you don't get to ascend, you don't get to justify mass murder as progress, and you definitely don't get to continue operating in my city." "Your city," the Blood Mage laughs. "You're a recent arrival, vampire. I've been building my power here for 12 years, slowly and carefully, staying beneath Batman's notice. This is my city more than yours." "Then you should have noticed that Gotham has changed," Alucard replies. "That the supernatural community here operates under new rules. That we protect rather than prey, serve rather than dominate. That monsters who choose otherwise get stopped." "By you?" She seems genuinely amused. "I've researched you, vampire. The purification ritual 6 months ago, everyone in the magical community heard about it. You're diminished. 30% reduction in power, your omnipresence crippled, your reality warping capabilities limited. You're a shadow of what you were, and you think you can stop me. I've accumulated 3 centuries of stolen life force. I am power incarnate." "Then this should be interesting," Alucard says, and releases his first restriction seal. His familiar army manifests, smaller than before the purification, less overwhelming but still formidable. The Hellhound emerges, flanked by ghouls that represent his absorbed souls. They're fewer in number than they once were, less infinite, but each one is more focused, more controlled. He's learned to work with limitations rather than overwhelming force. The Blood Mage gestures, and the stolen life force answers her command. Waves of crimson energy surge toward Alucard's familiars, not destroying them but draining them, feeding on the spiritual essence that gives them form. She's literally consuming his power, using it to fuel herself. "You can't win," she says, growing more powerful with each absorbed familiar. "Everything you throw at me just makes me stronger. Your armies, your power, your accumulated souls, they're all just more fuel for my ascension." Alucard recalls his familiars before she can drain more, reassessing tactics. Direct power confrontation won't work. She specifically built her magical framework to counter and consume opposing forces. He needs a different approach. "Nightwing," he says quietly, "I need you to disrupt that ritual array. the symbols arranged around her. They're channeling the accumulated power toward her ascension. Break the pattern, break the flow. On it, Dick confirms, already moving with an acrobat's grace. He throws explosive batarangs at the array's key points, disrupting carefully drawn symbols. The Blood Mage redirects her attention, firing bolts of stolen life force that would kill a normal human instantly. Nightwing dodges with the skill Batman trained into him, using the warehouse's architecture to stay mobile and unpredictable. It's not enough to win, but it's enough to distract, to divide the Blood Mage's attention. Alucard uses that opening. Not another familiar assault, not overwhelming force. Instead, he does what he's always done best. He becomes nightmare made manifest. He dissolves into shadow and fear, flowing around the Blood Mage's defenses, manifesting directly behind her in his most monstrous form. Not the theatrical vampire in a red coat, the real thing, the apex predator that lurks beneath civilization's veneer. 500 years of accumulated death and horror given physical form, eyes that have witnessed empires fall, fangs that have tasted thousands, the presence that makes ancient vampires kneel and demons reconsider their choices. The Blood Mage turns, sees what's behind her, and for the first time, genuine fear crosses her face. "You wanted to become perfect," Alucard says, voice carrying the weight of centuries. "You wanted to transcend mortality, to become something beyond human limitation. Let me show you what that actually means." He doesn't attack physically. Instead, he shows her. Through proximity, through the psychic pressure of his presence, he forces her to experience what he's experienced. 500 years of unlife. 2 million absorbed souls screaming their deaths. The weight of immortality crushing down moment after moment, year after year, century after century. The slow death of caring about anything, the erosion of humanity. The endless isolation of being fundamentally separated from the mortality that gives existence meaning. She sees it all. The horror of what she's trying to become, stripped of romantic fantasy and revealed as the curse it truly is. "This is what you want?" Alucard asks, and his voice is almost gentle, almost pitying. "To exist forever, accumulating power and death, becoming more monstrous with each passing year until you can't remember what it felt like to be human. To watch everyone you could care about age and die while you remain frozen in undeath. To need constant validation through power because existence itself has become meaningless." The Blood Mage screams, psychic assault overwhelming her carefully constructed rationalization. Her concentration breaks, the ritual destabilizes, and suddenly, all that accumulated life force has nowhere to go. It explodes outward, not destructively but dispersively, returning to the universe in waves of pure vitality that dissipate harmlessly into ambient energy. She collapses, power drained, reduced from god aspirant to simply an exhausted middle-aged woman who made terrible choices for 12 years. Nightwing moves in quickly, applying restraints that Constantine provided, mystically reinforced, designed to prevent magical casting. "It's over," Dick says, checking the Blood Mage for weapons. "Alucard, that was. What did you do to her?" "I showed her the truth," Alucard replies, already returning to his normal form, the monstrous aspect fading. "About immortality, about accumulated power, about becoming something beyond human. She wanted what I am. I showed her exactly what that means." The horror broke her concentration. "That's," Nightwing searches for words, "that's psychological warfare on a level Batman would appreciate. Batman taught me that sometimes the best weapon is understanding what your enemy truly wants and showing them why they don't actually want it." Alucard kneels beside the Blood Mage, who's sobbing now, the weight of her crimes and the horror of what she nearly became crashing down simultaneously. "I won't pretend to forgive you, but I understand you. The desire for power, for transcendence, for escape from mortality's limitations. I understand it intimately. I killed them," she whispers. "Hundreds of people, drained them, used them, and for what? To become a monster worse than any vampire." "Yes," Alucard confirms, because lying serves no purpose. "You did terrible things, And now you'll face justice for them. Human justice, magical oversight, whatever judgment this city's systems apply. But you failed to complete your ascension, which means you're still human, still capable of remorse, growth, and change. That's something I lost 5 centuries ago. GCPD arrives, along with members of Gotham's magical community, to properly contain the Blood Mage and dismantle her ritual workspace. Constantine appears through a portal, cigarette already lit, looking irritated at having his London crisis interrupted, but acknowledging the situation warranted it. Right so, Blood Mage trying to become immortal through mass murder, he summarizes, examining the disrupted ritual. Classic mistake, thinking immortality is something to aspire to rather than a curse to endure. You handled it well, Alucard. Minimal collateral damage, practitioner contained rather than killed, ritual disrupted before completion. Gold star for the vampire. Thanks, Alucard says dryly. Your approval means everything. It should, Constantine replies without irony. I don't give it often. He begins cataloging the ritual components for evidence and potential disposal. This is good work, mate. 6 months ago, you'd have probably just killed her and absorbed her power. Tonight, you showed restraint, used psychology instead of force, and captured rather than destroyed. That's growth. The observation resonates. 6 months ago, before the purification, before fully integrating into Gotham's heroic community, Alucard might have simply consumed the Blood Mage, added her accumulated power to his own, justified it as preventing future harm. Tonight, he chose differently. Chose capture, chose to show her the error rather than simply ending her existence. That choice, that restraint, that evolution, that's what heroism looks like on him. Nightwing joins them as the Blood Mage is loaded into a specialized transport. That psychological attack you used, showing her the reality of immortality, that came from personal experience, didn't it? You weren't just breaking her concentration, you were warning her. I've been what she wanted to become, Alucard admits. The monster beyond mortality, accumulating power across centuries, transcending human limitation. And I can tell you with absolute certainty, it's not worth it. The power doesn't compensate for what you lose. The immortality doesn't justify the isolation. You become something that exists but doesn't truly live. And yet you continue, Dick observes. You're still that monster, still immortal, still powerful, but you're choosing to use it differently. Because I found purpose again, Alucard replies. Masters who gave my existence meaning, boundaries that prevented monstrosity from consuming everything. First Integra Helsing, now this city and its heroes. Without that purpose, without choosing to serve something greater than my own nature, he trails off, looking at the warehouse, at the evidence of what happens when power serves only itself. Without that, I'd be her, or worse. They return to Gotham as dawn approaches, Alucard shadow traveling with Nightwing to drop him in Bloodhaven before heading to his church sanctuary. The sun will rise soon, and while it won't destroy him, it remains uncomfortable. Daylight is for humans and heroes who can walk in it without flinching. In his church, standing before the altar he's never prayed at because prayer feels hypocritical from a creature like him, Alucard reflects on 6 months of heroism. 6 months of choosing restraint over destruction, mercy over domination, capture over killing. 6 months of becoming something more than the monster he was born as. His calm chirps, Batman's voice professional as always. Good work tonight. Constantine's report confirms you handled the situation optimally, minimum force, maximum effectiveness, no civilian casualties. That's exactly what we need from assets in your position. Thank you, Alucard replies, and he means it. Batman's approval is harder earned than Constantine's casual praise, more meaningful because it comes from someone who measures everything against impossible standards. There's another situation developing, Batman continues. Demonic activity in Robinson Park, evidence of a summoning circle being prepared. Zatanna's available this time if you need backup. Interested? Alucard looks at the brightening sky, knowing he should rest. Knowing he's pushed his diminished powers throughout the night and needs recovery time. knowing that the smart move is to rest, to let someone else handle the next crisis. "I'm interested," he says, because that's what heroes do. They keep going, keep fighting, keep protecting even when exhaustion pulls at their bones and common sense suggests retreat. "Give me the coordinates. I'll meet Zatanna there." As he flows back into Gotham's shadows for another hunt, another battle, another chance to prove he's more than his nature, Alucard finally understands what the Justice League saw in him. What Batman trusted, what Wonder Woman believed in, what Superman protected during the purification ritual. Not the power he wielded or the souls he carried. Not his 5 centuries of experience or his vampiric abilities. They saw the choice. The moment-by-moment decision to serve rather than dominate, to protect rather than prey, to be the monster that defends rather than the monster that destroys. That choice, renewed every night for 6 months, has become who he is. Not Dracula's successor or the no-life king or the vampire who conquered death. Just Alucard, weapon, defender, and against all odds hero. In Robinson Park, Zatanna waits beside a nascent summoning circle, already preparing countermeasures. She sees him arrive in shadow form and smiles with genuine warmth. "Hey, partner, ready to stop another apocalypse?" "Always," Alucard replies, manifesting beside her. "What are we facing?" "Lesser demon cult, but they're trying to summon something major, could escalate quickly." She begins casting preparatory wards. "You good? You've been running nonstop tonight." "I'm functional," he assures her. "And I'm here, that's what matters." They work together, magical expert and supernatural enforcer, dismantling the cult's preparations before the summoning can be completed. It's routine by now, a dance they've performed dozens of times. Efficient, professional, effective. The cult is contained, the demon never manifests, and Gotham survives another night because its protectors chose to stand against darkness. As the sun finally breaks over Gotham's skyline, painting the city in shades of amber and gold, Alucard retreats to his church. He's exhausted, diminished, running on reserves he didn't know he still possessed. But he's satisfied. Proud, even. Tonight he saved lives, stopped threats, and chose heroism when monstrosity would have been easier. 6 months ago, that choice would have been a difficult one. Tonight it was natural, instinctive, who he is rather than what he forces himself to be. Alfred's words echo in his memory. Hope shines brightest in the darkest night. Alucard smiles, settling into his sanctuary as dawn claims Gotham. He is darkness, true. 500 years of accumulated death, 2 million souls and power that could devastate cities. He is a monster in every sense that matters. But he is darkness that serves the light, monster that protects, death that defends life. And in Gotham, city of endless night, home to Batman's crusade, symbol of humanity's capacity to create hope from horror, that darkness has found its purpose. The crimson-coated vampire rests as heroes do, knowing another crisis awaits. Another threat to contain, another victim to save, another chance to prove that even monsters can choose redemption. The no-life king has become Gotham's blood knight. The weapon has found its war, and the vampire who conquered death has learned, finally, what it means to live.